I lay on the examination table as Dr. Sarah Martinez gently pressed my ribs. The pain made me gasp. "Third time this year," the doctor murmured, studying old x-rays. My mother stood rigid by the door, whispering urgently about Jake's football scholarship to State University. But Dr. Martinez's expression hardened. She locked eyes with me, speaking firmly, "You're safe now." Then she reached for the phone on the wall. Mom lunged forward, but the doctor was already dialing. Everything changed in that moment. 6 months before that pivotal moment in the doctor's office, my life looked completely different. I worked double shifts at Mel's Diner on Route 47, serving truckers their coffee black and families their Sunday pancakes. Every dollar went straight into my savings account marked Freedom Fund in my private journal. Meanwhile, Jake basked in our town's adoration as Riverside High's star quarterback. Our house told the story of our family's priorities. The living room walls displayed Jake's trophies like religious artifacts, state championship rings, MVP awards, newspaper clippings proclaiming him Riverside's golden arm. My nursing school acceptance letter from Mercy General's program sat forgotten in the kitchen drawer under expired coupons and old receipts. That Tuesday evening changed everything. I just finished a 12-hour shift, my feet aching and uniform stained with syrup. Jake's practice had ended early, and he was home, sprawled across the couch, watching game footage. I made the mistake of taking a phone call in the kitchen, speaking quietly to a landlord about a studio apartment near the hospital. $700 a month, utilities included. I repeated, writing down the address. "Yes, I can come see it tomorrow morning." The football footage paused. I heard Jake's footsteps before I saw him in the doorway, his 6'3" frame blocking my exit. His jaw worked the way it did before big games, that telltale sign of barely contained energy. Going somewhere, Leann." His voice carried that dangerous, quiet tone I'd learned to fear since we were kids. "Just looking at options for when school starts," I said, trying to edge past him. His hand shot out, grabbing the notepad. "You're not going anywhere. Mom needs you here." "I'm 24, Jake. I can make my own choices." That's when he laughed, that bitter sound that meant trouble. "You think you're better than us, better than this family." That's not what I said. "But it's what you meant." He crumpled the paper, tossing it aside. "Always acting so superior, like we're holding you back." I tried to leave the kitchen, but he shifted, using his athlete's reflexes to block me again. The familiar dance of intimidation we'd performed for years, except this time, something in his eyes seemed more desperate. "Jake, please, I'm tired. Let me go to bed." "Tired from what? Pouring coffee? Try 2 a-days in 90-degree heat. Try having the entire town's hopes on your shoulders." "I never asked you to carry anything," I said softly. "That's your choice." His face darkened. In one swift motion, he shoved me backward. My hip caught the counter's edge as I stumbled toward the basement stairs. His hands pushed again, harder this time. The world tilted. I grabbed for the railing but missed. The fall happened in slow motion. 13 steps. My shoulder hit first, then my back, my legs tangling as I tumbled. When I finally stopped at the bottom, gasping for breath, Jake stood at the top of the stairs, silhouetted by the kitchen light. "Leann. Oh God, are you okay?" His voice had transformed, dripping with false concern. "Mom, Dad, Leann fell down the stairs." My parents rushed in, their faces masks of worry. Mom knelt beside me while Dad helped me sit up, checking for obvious injuries. "What happened?" Mom's hands fluttered over my arms, searching for damage. "She was rushing around like always," Jake said from above, his tone perfectly calibrated. "I tried to tell her to slow down, but you know how she is. Always in a hurry." I opened my mouth to protest, but the words wouldn't come. The pain in my ribs made breathing difficult, and the look in Jake's eyes promised worse if I contradicted him. "Clumsy girl," Dad muttered, helping me stand. "You need to be more careful. What if you'd broken something? The hospital bills alone would kill us." That night, I lay in bed with an ice pack on my ribs, listening to my parents fuss over Jake downstairs. They were discussing his upcoming game, the scouts who'd be attending his bright future stretching ahead, like a golden highway. 3 days later, I discovered why Jake had really been so desperate to keep me home. While looking for pain reliever in his room, I found his journal tucked behind football magazines. My hand shook as I read his frantic entries about failing 3 classes, about the pills he bought from Tyler McCann to stay awake for studying, about the rage that consumed him when he took too many. "If they find out I'm done," he'd written, "no scholarship, no NFL, no escape from this dead-end town. I can't let that happen. I won't let anyone ruin this for me. Not coaches, not teachers, not even family." The journal slipped from my numb fingers. My brother wasn't just violent. He was spiraling, and I was trapped in the hurricane's path. 2 weeks after discovering Jake's journal, I made a decision. The bruises on my ribs had faded to yellow-green shadows, but the memory of that staircase lingered. I started my shift at Mel's Diner earlier than usual, hoping to avoid Jake's morning workout routine. Rosa, my manager, noticed my careful movements as I tied my apron. "You okay, honey?" Rosa's weathered face creased with concern. She'd run this diner for 30 years, seen every kind of trouble walk through those glass doors. "One just slept wrong," I lied, grabbing the coffee pot. The morning rush passed in a blur of orders and refills. I'd managed to pick up an extra shift, adding another $40 to my escape fund. During my break, I sat in the back booth with my phone scrolling through apartment listings. A studio near Mercy General had dropped its price. I dialed quickly. "Yes, I'm still interested," I told the landlord. "I can put down a deposit next week." What I didn't know was that Jake had left practice early with a headache. He'd driven past the diner, seen my car, and waited. When I walked to the parking lot after my shift, he was leaning against my beat-up Honda, spinning his keys. Busy day. His casual tone didn't match the tension in his shoulders. "Just work." I fumbled for my keys, calculating the distance to the diner's door. "Whoa, funny thing. Tyler McCann said he saw you at the bank yesterday, making a big withdrawal." My stomach dropped. I needed cash for textbooks. Textbooks for the program that doesn't start for 3 months. Jake pushed off my car, moving closer. "Try again." "It's my money, Jake, from my job. What I do with it isn't your concern." His hand slammed onto my car's hood, making me jump. "Everything you do is my concern. You're my sister. Family sticks together. Like you stuck by me on those stairs." The words escaped before I could stop them. His face contorted, that familiar rage surfacing like a creature from deep water. In the fading daylight of the parking lot, he seemed larger, more threatening. "Get in the car," he ordered. "No." I said, "Get in the car, Leann. We're going home." I tried to move past him to the driver's door, but he grabbed my wrist, squeezing until bones ground together. With his other hand, he yanked my purse, dumping its contents on the asphalt. My wallet, work receipts, and apartment brochures scattered in the wind. "Looking for a new place?" He kicked at the papers. "With what credit? What references you think you can just leave?" "Let go of me." I tried to pull free, but his grip tightened. That's when he saw my laptop bag in the back seat. His eyes lit with malicious inspiration. Before I could react, he'd smashed the window with his elbow, reached inside, and pulled out my computer. "No, Jake, please. All my assignments are on there." "Assignments for the life you're not going to have." He raised the laptop overhead. "That's 3 months of work, my entire portfolio." The laptop hit the concrete with a sickening crack. He stomped on it twice, for good measure, plastic and metal crunching under his football cleats. Tears burned my eyes as I watched months of careful work destroyed in seconds. "Now get in the car," he said again, breathing hard, "or I'll do the same to you." A pickup truck pulled into the lot, its headlights sweeping over us. Jake immediately shifted, becoming the concerned brother. "Come on, Leann, let's get you home. You're obviously upset." The truck parked nearby. An elderly man emerged, eyeing us with suspicion. Jake maintained his helpful brother act, actually opening my car door for me. I had no choice but to get in my wrist. Throbbing laptop destroyed dreams, scattered like the papers still swirling in the wind. The drive home was silent, except for Jake's breathing and the rain starting to hit the windshield. When we reached the house, our parents were on the porch, Mom's face pinched with worry. "There you are," she called. "Jake said you weren't answering your phone." "She had a rough day at work," Jake said, smoothly getting out first. "Some customer gave her trouble. You know how emotional she gets." I followed slowly, cradling my injured wrist. Dad noticed immediately. "What happened to your hand?" Before I could answer, Jake jumped in. "She tried to break up a fight in the parking lot, always trying to help everybody. I told her to stay out of it, but she wouldn't listen." "A fight?" Mom's eyes widened. "At Mel's." "Some trucker thing?" Jake elaborated, the lie flowing easily. "I happened to drive by, saw her car. Good thing, too. Who knows what might have happened?" "You shouldn't get involved in things like that," Dad scolded me. "You're not built for confrontation. Let the men handle it." I stood there in the rain, wrists swelling, watching my family believe every word. Jake's hand landed on my shoulder, squeezing just hard enough to remind me who was in control. "I'll help her inside," he offered. "Make sure she ices that wrist." As we walked through the door, he leaned close, whispering, "Try to leave again, and next time it won't be your laptop I break." What none of us knew was that Rosa had installed new security cameras the week before after a series of break-ins at neighboring businesses. The high-definition camera mounted above the diner's back entrance had captured everything: Jake waiting by my car, the assault, the destroyed laptop, even his threatening posture. Rosa would review that footage the next morning while doing inventory. She'd watch it 3 times, her face growing grimmer with each viewing. Then she'd make a copy, hide it in the safe, and wait for the right moment to act. Because Rosa had seen this before, recognized the pattern of abuse, and she wasn't about to let another girl disappear into the statistics. But I didn't know any of that as I sat at the dinner table that night, pushing food around my plate with my good hand, listening to my parents plan Jake's glorious future while mine lay in pieces in a diner parking lot. The morning arrived, gray and humid, typical August weather in Riverside. 4:30 in the morning, and I moved through the house like a ghost, each step calculated to avoid the creaky floorboards I'd memorized over 24 years. My duffel bag packed with essentials waited by the back door. Today was the day. I'd saved enough, found a room to rent, and arranged to start my new schedule at the diner. All I had to do was make it to my car. The kitchen was dark except for the nightlight Mom kept above the stove. I eased the door open, breath shallow freedom, just 20 feet away across the driveway. That's when the overhead light blazed to life. "Going for a run." Jake stood by the refrigerator, already dressed in his workout gear. My hand froze on the doorknob. "Early shift at the diner." "With luggage?" He nodded toward my bag. "That's interesting." "Extra uniforms. Rosa asked me to." "Stop lying!" His voice cut through my excuse like a blade. "You think I'm stupid? You think I don't notice things going missing from your room? The way you've been saying goodbye to regular customers like you'll never see them again." I straightened my spine, finding courage I didn't know existed. "I'm leaving, Jake. You can't stop me." "Can't I?" He moved between me and the door, his morning protein shake still in hand. "Today's the most important day of my life. Scout from state is coming to watch practice. Coach says if I perform well, the scholarship's guaranteed." "That has nothing to do with me." "Everything has to do with you." The shake splattered across the wall as he threw it. "You leaving makes me look weak, like I can't even keep my own family together. You think scouts want players with family drama. That's insane. Is it you have no idea what I've sacrificed, what I've done to get here?" His eyes were wild, pupils dilated. I wondered if he'd already taken his pills this morning. "You're going to walk upstairs, unpack that bag, and tomorrow you'll be at my game cheering like the supportive sister you're supposed to be." "No." The word hung between us like a challenge. Jake's face cycled through emotions, disbelief, rage, then something darker. Before I could react, he'd crossed the kitchen, his hand tangling in my hair, yanking me backward. You selfish little... I swung the duffel bag at his face, catching him off guard. He released me, stumbling back. I lunged for the door, but he recovered too quickly. His tackle would have made his coaches proud. We crashed into the kitchen table chairs, scattering. "Shh, stop it!" I screamed, hoping to wake our parents. "Help, somebody help me!" Jake's hand covered my mouth. "Shut up! You'll ruin everything!" I bit down hard, tasting blood. He jerked away with a curse and I scrambled to my feet, but there was nowhere to go. He stood between me and every exit, his size advantage impossible to overcome. "You always were jealous," he snarled, holding his injured hand. "Couldn't stand that I was special, that I had a future." "I was never jealous. I was scared." The truth poured out. "Scared of you, of what you'd become." He lunged again. This time I couldn't dodge. His hands caught my shoulders, slamming me against the kitchen counter. The edge caught my lower back, sending lightning through my spine. "Take it back," he demanded. "It's the truth. You're sick, Jake. The pills, the rage hurting people. You need help." His fist connected with my stomach. Air rushed from my lungs as I doubled over. Another blow caught my side. I dropped to the linoleum, curling into a protective ball, but the kicks came anyway. His cleats, still on from planned morning drills, found my ribs repeatedly. "I'm not sick," each word punctuated by impact. "I'm perfect. I'm everything this family has." Through the pain, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Our parents appeared in the doorway, taking in the destroyed kitchen. Me on the floor. Jake standing over me, breathing hard. "What in God's name?" Dad started. "She attacked me." Jake's transformation was instant. I came down for breakfast and she went crazy. Started screaming about ruining my scout day, throwing things. Mom rushed to Jake, checking his bitten hand. "Oh, honey, you're bleeding." "Diane." Dad's voice held warning. "Look at your daughter." I tried to speak, but breathing was agony. Each inhale felt like knives between my ribs. Blood filled my mouth where I'd bitten my tongue during the assault. "She's dramatic, Frank. Always has been." Mom wouldn't even look at me. "Today of all days, she knows how important this is." "Mom," I wheezed. "He broke. I think he broke." "Nothing's broken," Jake interrupted. "She's exaggerating like always. Trying to get attention on my big day." Dad knelt beside me, his hands surprisingly gentle as he helped me sit up. For a moment I thought I saw clarity in his eyes. Then Jake spoke again. "If she goes to the hospital, they'll ask questions. You know what that means. Police, reports, everything we've worked for gone." His voice cracked perfectly. "My whole future destroyed because she's having some kind of breakdown." Mom grabbed Dad's arm. "He's right, Frank. We can't..." "Not today. The scout will hear about it. Small town like this, everyone will know by noon." "She needs a doctor, Diane." "After the scout leaves, we'll take her to Riverside General then. Tell them she fell during one of her dizzy spells." I watched my father's resolve crumble. The man who taught me to ride a bike, who'd walked me down the aisle at junior prom when my date stood me up, chose his son's football career over his daughter's broken body. "Can you stand?" he asked me quietly. "Dad, please." "Can you stand, Leann?" With his help, I made it to my feet. The room spun, my ribs screamed, but I stood. "There's Sigoy." Mom's relief was palpable. "She's fine, just being dramatic. Jake, go get ready for practice. This day is too important to let anything derail it." Jake headed for the stairs, pausing to look back. "Sorry about your ribs, Leann. Accidents happen when people don't listen." After he left, Mom turned on me with venom I'd never seen before. "How dare you? How dare you try to sabotage your brother's future? Do you know what we've invested in him? The camps, the trainers, the equipment. He's hurting me, Mom. He's been hurting me for months." "Because you provoke him, always talking about leaving, making him feel abandoned. He's under pressure you can't imagine." "Take me to the hospital, please." After the scout. And you'll tell them you fell. You'll smile at the game tomorrow. You'll be the supportive sister this family needs you to be. She stormed upstairs, leaving Dad and me alone. He couldn't meet my eyes. Dad, just do what your mother says, for all our sakes. He followed Mom upstairs, leaving me standing in the destroyed kitchen, ribs, broken spirit, shattered blood still filling my mouth. Outside, dawn was breaking over Riverside, painting the sky the color of bruises. What none of us knew was that Mr. Thompson, our 70-year-old neighbor, had been up early watering his garden. The week before, he'd installed security cameras after someone tried to break into his shed. One camera aimed at his side yard had a clear view through our kitchen window. That camera captured everything: Jake throwing me against the counter, the kicks, my parents choosing his future over my safety. Mr. Thompson wouldn't see the footage until later when reviewing his cameras. But when he did, the retired police officer would know exactly what to do with evidence of assault and criminal neglect. For now, though, I pressed ice to my ribs and counted the hours until the scout's visit ended, until I could finally get medical help, until someone might actually save me from the hell my home had become. The digital clock in my parents' Suburban showed 3:17 in the afternoon when we finally pulled into Riverside General's emergency entrance. 7 hours since Jake's assault. 7 hours of agony masked by fake smiles as I served his special game day breakfast and waved from the porch as he left for the scout's visit. 7 hours of Mom coaching my story while Dad stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. Remember, Mom said for the 10th time, you were carrying laundry down to the basement. Your dizzy spells have been acting up. You missed the 3rd step and tumbled all the way down. I know the story. Each word hurt to speak. Good, because one wrong detail and everything unravels. Jake's meeting with the scout went perfectly. We're not letting your clumsiness ruin his moment. Dad finally spoke as he parked. Diane, enough! Don't you start, Frank. We're in this together. The automatic doors whooshed open to reveal the controlled chaos of the ER. The triage nurse, a young woman with kind eyes, took one look at me and fast-tracked us to an examination room. Scale of 1 to 10, she asked, helping me onto the bed. 8, I whispered. Mom interrupted. She's exaggerating, maybe a 5. You know how young women can be. The nurse's expression didn't change, but her eyes flicked between us. I was asking the patient, ma'am, miss, what happened? She fell down the stairs. Mom answered, laundry basket, those dizzy spells she gets. I see. The nurse addressed me directly. Can you tell me what happened? I opened my mouth, Jake's threats echoing in my mind. I fell. She made notes on her tablet, movements efficient, but somehow gentle. Dr. Martinez will be in shortly. She's our attending today. After she left, Mom paced the small room. This is taking too long. What if someone from town sees us here? What if word gets back to the scout? He's probably already gone, Diane, Dad said quietly. But people talk, especially in this town. She straightened my hair roughly. Sit up straighter, you look guilty. The door opened and Dr. Sarah Martinez entered, late 40s, silver streaking her black hair with eyes that seemed to see everything at once. She reviewed the tablet, then looked directly at me. Leann is it. I'm Dr. Martinez. I understand you fell. Down the stairs, Mom supplied. Carrying laundry. Those basement steps are so steep. Dr. Martinez smiled politely. Thank you, Mrs. Diane Patterson. This is my husband, Frank. Thank you, Diane. I'll need to examine Leann now. Hospital policy requires privacy during examinations. Mom's face tightened. We're her parents. We have a right to stay. She's an adult and our policies are clear. The waiting room is just down the hall. We'll call you when we're finished. But I insist. The doctor's tone brooked no argument. Nurse Chen will show you the way. My parents exchanged worried glances but had no choice. As they reluctantly left, Dad looked back at me, something like regret flickering across his face. Once alone, Dr. Martinez pulled a stool close to my bed. Now then, Leann, let's talk about what really happened. I told you, I fell. She nodded slowly, pulling up something on the tablet. Interesting, because according to our records, you've fallen quite a bit lately. 3 months ago, bruised ribs. 6 months ago, wrist injury. A year ago, concussion. That's a lot of falls for someone your age. I'm clumsy. Are you? She stood gently, helping me remove my shirt. I heard her sharp intake of breath. These bruises, they're finger marks, aren't they? And these impact patterns on your ribs, they're consistent with kicks, not a fall. Tears burned my eyes. Please, you don't understand. I understand more than you think. Her fingers gently probed my ribs, cataloging each injury. Who did this to you? I can't. I caught myself. Heal what? Nothing. I fell, that's all. Dr. Martinez sat back down, her expression softening. Leann, I've been an emergency physician for 20 years. I've seen every type of injury imaginable. Falls downstairs create specific patterns, random bruising, injuries at different heights. What you have are defensive wounds, targeted strikes. Someone did this deliberately. My parents are right outside. And they're coaching your story, aren't they? Making sure you don't say anything that might affect someone's future. I stared at her, stunned by her perceptiveness. She leaned forward. I need you to listen carefully. Whatever they've told you, whatever threats have been made, I can help, but only if you let me. You don't know my family. You don't know what he's capable of. Your brother Jake's star quarterback. My shock must have shown because she offered a sad smile. Small town, Leann, and this isn't his first girlfriend to come through here with unusual injuries. I'm not his girlfriend, I'm his sister. Which makes this even more serious. She pulled up a chair sitting at my eye level. I know you're scared. I know there's pressure to stay quiet, but you're showing signs of internal injury. Broken ribs can puncture lungs, lacerate organs. You could die protecting someone who clearly doesn't care if they kill you. He has a scholarship, my parents. They've invested everything. And what about your life, your future, your nursing school acceptance? How did you... Rosa Mendez is my patient. She's worried about you. Showed me interesting security footage from yesterday. My heart raced, sending fresh pain through my chest. Dr. Martinez continued, Here's what's going to happen. I'm ordering x-rays and a CT scan. While you're in radiology, I'm calling a colleague. Detective Amanda Walsh specializes in cases like this. She's discreet, professional, and very good at her job. No, please, you can't. I can, and I will. As a mandated reporter, I'm legally obligated when I see clear evidence of assault. But more than that, as a human being, I won't stand by while someone terrorizes you. My parents will never forgive me. They've already failed you by choosing your brother's career over your safety. She stood, moving toward the door. I'll be right back. Nurse Chen will take you to radiology, and Leann. You're safe now. I promise you that. She left before I could protest further. Through the small window, I watched her approach the nurse's station, her posture radiating determination. She picked up the phone, dialing with practiced efficiency. Even from here, I could see my parents notice Mom starting to rise from her chair in the waiting area. But Dr. Martinez had already turned away, speaking rapidly into the receiver. As she talked, she gestured to security, who casually positioned themselves between the waiting room and my examination area. This was it. The moment everything would change. The secret we'd kept, the pain we'd hid in the future Jake had beaten me to protect it, was all about to shatter like my ribs under his cleats. Nurse Chen returned with a wheelchair. Ready for those x-rays, honey. As she helped me transfer from bed to chair, I caught a glimpse of Dr. Martinez still on the phone, now writing notes on a legal pad. Mom was arguing with security, Dad trying to calm her, their voices carrying even through the closed doors. Is someone in trouble? Nurse Chen asked quietly as we passed the drama. Oh, yeah, I whispered, surprising myself with a moment of dark humor. I think we all are. The radiology suite was quiet, except for the hum of machinery and the careful instructions from the technician. Hold your breath and breathe. Each position sent fresh agony through my torso, but the X-ray tech, a gentle woman named Patricia, kept apologizing as if she were causing the pain rather than just documenting it. When we finished, Nurse Chen wheeled me back through different hallways. Dr. Martinez asked us to use exam room 12, she explained. It's more private. Room 12 was larger with actual windows overlooking the hospital's meditation garden. Dr. Martinez waited inside, her expression grave but determined. A metal filing box sat on the counter beside her. Your x-rays confirm 3 fractured ribs and significant soft tissue damage, she said without preamble. The radiologist also noted older injuries in various stages of healing. This has been going on for a while, hasn't it? I nodded, unable to form words around the lump in my throat. Your parents are demanding to see you. They've threatened to call their lawyer, file complaints with the hospital board. She pulled over a rolling stool. But right now, you're my patient, and my only concern is your safety and well-being. They'll destroy you. My father knows people. Let them try. She opened the filing box, revealing folders marked with dates going back 2 years. Do you know what these are? Documentation? Every suspicious injury you've presented with. Every inconsistent story. Photos, measurements, medical notes. I've been building this file since the first time you came in with defensive wounds disguised as accidents. My eyes widened. You've known all along. Suspected. Knowing and proving are different things. But today, with what Rosa showed me and these new injuries, we have enough. She pulled out a photograph from my visit 6 months ago. See this bruise pattern on your upper arm, classic grip marks, and this one on your back impact pattern, consistent with being pushed into a hard surface. Why didn't you say anything before? Because you weren't ready to hear it. Victims of family violence need to reach their own breaking point. Pushing too hard too soon often drives them deeper into silence. She set down the photos, but today felt different. Something in your eyes when they brought you in, like you're finally done protecting him. A knock interrupted us. Dr. Martinez called out, "Come in!" A woman entered, early 40s, wearing a conservative blazer over dark jeans. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her green eyes held a mixture of warmth and steel. Leann, this is Detective Amanda Walsh, Dr. Martinez introduced. She leads our county's domestic violence response team. Detective Walsh extended her hand carefully, noticing my wince as I shifted. I know you're in pain, so I'll try to keep this brief. Dr. Martinez has shared her concerns. I'd like to hear your story directly if you're willing. I don't know if I can do this. That's okay, we'll go at your pace. She pulled out a small recorder. This is just for accuracy. You can stop anytime, ask for breaks, whatever you need. Through the window, I could see my parents in the hallway arguing with a security guard. Mom's face was red, her gestures animated. Dad looked smaller somehow, shoulders slumped. They're going to hate me, I whispered. They should have protected you, Dr. Martinez said firmly. That was their job, and they failed. Detective Walsh leaned forward. Leann, I know this is hard, but I need you to understand something. Your brother's violence is escalating. The force used today could have killed you. Next time it might. There won't be a next time. I was leaving. That's why I stopped, realizing I'd admitted more than intended. That's why he attacked you, because you were trying to leave. The dam broke. Words poured out between sobs. Jake's journal, the pills, the threats, the stairs, the parking lot, this morning's assault. Every incident I'd minimized, every injury I'd hidden. Detective Walsh listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. When I finished, she exchanged glances with Dr. Martinez. This is more serious than just domestic assault. The drug use, the pattern of escalation involving your parents in the cover-up, these are multiple felonies. Felonies! My voice cracked. Assault causing serious bodily injury. False imprisonment. Witness intimidation, possibly, more depending on what else we uncover. She paused. Has Jake hurt anyone else? Girlfriends? Teammates? I don't know, maybe. He mentioned an ex-girlfriend at State who was spreading rumors about him. Detective Walsh made another note. Melissa Chen. She filed a report last semester about a football player assaulting her but withdrew it suddenly. We suspected pressure from the athletic department. Chen. But my parents said we can't use that name. I caught myself realizing the absurdity. Your parents say a lot of things that aren't true, Dr. Martinez observed dryly. A commotion in the hallway drew our attention. Through the window, we saw hospital security restraining a furious Frank Patterson. That's my daughter in there, he shouted. You have no right. My mother stood beside him, tears streaming down her face. But they weren't tears of concern for me. They were tears of rage at losing control. I'll need to deal with them, Detective Walsh said. But first, Leann, I need your consent to proceed. To interview witnesses, collect evidence, ultimately arrest Jake. This is your choice, but I want you to make it with full knowledge of what's at stake. What about my parents? Will they be arrested too? That depends on what our investigation reveals. Failure to report child abuse when you were a minor, possibly obstruction of justice, witness tampering if they've pressured you to lie. She softened her tone. But my primary concern is stopping Jake before he seriously injures or kills someone. Dr. Martinez pulled up something on her tablet. I want to show you something. These are statistics on domestic violence escalation. When victims try to leave, that's when abusers are most dangerous. 75% of domestic violence homicides occur during or after the victim attempts to leave. You're saying he might... I'm saying your instincts to leave were correct, but you need protection while you do it. Detective Walsh stood. If you give me permission, I can have officers at your house within the hour. We'll arrest Jake, secure the scene, get you somewhere safe. Where would I go? This is the only home I've ever known. There are resources, safe houses, programs for survivors. Dr. Martinez squeezed my hand gently. You're not alone anymore. I looked at these two women, strangers until today, who were willing to fight for me when my own family wouldn't. Outside, my parents continued their scene, drawing stares from passing staff and visitors. Do it, I heard myself say. Make the call. Detective Walsh smiled, the expression transforming her serious face. You're incredibly brave. I'll start the paperwork immediately. Dr. Martinez will coordinate with victim services for temporary housing. As she headed for the door, I called out, Detective, what if Jake denies everything? It's his word against mine. She turned back, her smile growing wider. About that. Seems your neighbor Mr. Thompson visited the station this morning. Something about security footage he thought we should see. And Rosa Mendez hand-delivered some interesting parking lot video. Your brother's word won't mean much against multiple camera angles showing clear assault. After she left, Dr. Martinez began explaining next step safety plans and resources, but I barely heard her. Through the window, I watched Detective Walsh approach my parents' badge, visible her posture official. The color drained from Mom's face as reality hit. Their golden boy, their meal ticket, their perfect son was about to face consequences for the first time in his life, and they'd chosen his side right up until the handcuffs clicked. Within an hour, Riverside General's quiet emergency department transformed into a crime scene. Detective Walsh had returned with her specialized team, a photographer, a forensic nurse, and another detective who introduced himself simply as Mills. They worked with practiced efficiency, turning Exam Room 12 into a makeshift investigation headquarters. We need to document everything. The forensic nurse explained, her voice gentle despite the clinical nature of her work. Every bruise, cut, and mark tells a story. This evidence could be crucial in court. I stood in a hospital gown while she photographed injuries I'd hidden for months. The fresh damage from this morning appeared purple-black under the special lights. Older wounds showed as yellowing shadows, a timeline of violence written on my skin. Turn to your left, please, the photographer instructed. Can you lift your arm? I know it hurts. Detective Mills measured each bruise, calling out dimensions while his partner recorded. Contusion on right rib cage approximately 4 inches by 6 inches, consistent with shoe impact pattern. Through it all, Dr. Martinez stayed nearby, a steady presence when the process became overwhelming. My parents had been moved to a separate waiting area after Dad's attempt to force his way into the room resulted in near arrest. Jake's at the house, Detective Walsh informed me between evidence collection. Units are on the way there now. We've also dispatched officers to the practice field in case he goes there after getting our calls. He won't run, I said with certainty. He's too arrogant. He'll think he can talk his way out of this like everything else. A knock interrupted. Nurse Chen poked her head in. Detective Walsh, there's a Francis Barrett here. Says he's the Patterson family attorney. That was fast, Walsh muttered. Send him to conference room 3. I'll be there shortly. After the photography finished, I sat on the bed in fresh clothes Rosa had somehow arranged to have delivered. Detective Walsh pulled up a chair, her expression serious. Your family's lawyer is demanding access to you. He's threatening harassment charges, false arrests, the works, standard scare tactics. She leaned back. But something interesting happened. When we called Jake to request he come to the station, he laughed, said, and I quote, "My sister's crazy. Whatever she told you is a lie. She's jealous of my success." That sounds like him. He also said he'd be happy to come in after practice to clear things up. Seemed very confident. Then he asked if we'd contacted someone named Tyler McCann. His dealer, I said quickly. Jake gets pills from him, stimulants mostly, maybe steroids too. Walsh and Mills exchanged meaningful looks. That explains his next move. 40 minutes after our call, Jake texted multiple teammates warning them about a crazy situation with his sister. One of those teammates, Connor Reeves, is actually here. Connor's here! I couldn't hide my surprise. Connor had been Jake's best friend since middle school. He's been in the waiting room for an hour. Says he needs to talk to someone about Jake. Walsh stood. Would you be okay if I brought him in? You don't have to agree. I thought about Connor, the quiet kid who'd become a linebacker, always in Jake's shadow, despite being naturally kind. Okay. Minutes later, Connor entered, looking simultaneously huge and terrified. His practice uniform was still grass-stained helmet tucked under one arm. When he saw my visible injuries, his face crumpled. God, Leann, I'm so sorry. I knew he was getting worse, but I didn't. Connor, what are you doing here? I asked. He set down his helmet with shaking hands. When Jake texted everyone about you making accusations, trying to ruin his scholarship, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. He turned to Detective Walsh. I have videos from parties, locker rooms. Jake bragging about keeping Leann in line, talking about what he'd do if she ever tried to leave. You recorded him. Connor's face reddened. Started about 6 months ago, after what happened with Melissa at State. Jake laughed about making her drop the charges. Said he knew how to handle women who didn't know their place. It made me sick, but I was scared to say anything. He's the team captain. Coach's favorite. No one crosses Jake Patterson. Until now, Detective Walsh said firmly. Connor, would you be willing to share those videos, testify if necessary? Yes. The word came out like a release. I've got about 20 videos. They're bad. He talks about the drugs, too. How they make him feel invincible. How Leann deserves what she gets for trying to abandon the family. I stared at Connor, this boy I'd known since childhood who'd eaten Sunday dinners at our table and celebrated championships in our living room. Why didn't you tell anyone? I tried once. Mentioned to Coach that Jake seemed unstable. Next day, I was benched for attitude problems. Message received. He looked at his hands. But when I heard he put you in the hospital, when I saw him joking at practice about teaching you a lesson, I couldn't be complicit anymore. Detective Mills stepped forward. We'll need your phone, all the videos. You might face questions about why you didn't report earlier. I know. I deserve that. Connor finally met my eyes. Your brother needs help, Leann, real help, but he also needs to be stopped before he kills someone. Walsh's radio crackled. Unit 7 to Detective Walsh. We're at the Patterson residence. Subject is home but refusing to exit. Parents just pulled up causing a scene. Tell them to maintain position. I'm sending backup. Walsh responded, then looked at me. Things are about to escalate. Your parents will likely try to interfere with Jake's arrest. Are you prepared for that? Before I could answer, the door burst open. Francis Barrett, my parents' attorney, stood there in an expensive suit, face flushed with indignation. Behind him, hospital security tried to explain he couldn't enter without permission. This is illegal detention, Barrett declared. My client is an adult being held against her will. I demand immediate access. Your client? Walsh stood slowly. I wasn't aware Leann had retained counsel. I represent the Patterson family. Then you have a conflict of interest, counselor. Leann is a victim. Jake is the suspected perpetrator. The parents are potential accessories. You can't represent all parties. Barrett's composure slipped. This is a family matter being blown out of proportion. Siblings fight. Leann has a history of attention-seeking behavior. According to whom, Dr. Martinez stepped forward, because her medical records show a pattern of suspicious injuries consistent with ongoing abuse. Speculation and coincidence, Barrett dismissed. Connor suddenly spoke up. I have videos of Jake admitting to hurting her, bragging about it. Is that coincidence too? The lawyer whirled on him. You're a minor. Those recordings may be inadmissible. I'm 18, Connor replied steadily, have been for 6 months, and Indiana is a one-party consent state for recordings. I looked it up. The room fell silent. Barrett's face cycled through several shades of red before he composed himself. Leann, your parents are worried sick. They want what's best for you. Come with me and we can sort this out privately. No need for police involvement. Think about Jake's future, your family's reputation. Her family's reputation, Dr. Martinez's voice could have cut glass. What about her broken ribs, her safety, her life? You're being dramatic? No, I interrupted, finding strength I didn't know existed. I'm done being silent, done protecting Jake while he hurts me, done letting my parents choose his football career over my life. I looked Barrett directly in the eye. I'm pressing charges, all of them, and if you try to interfere, I'll add witness intimidation to the list. The lawyer's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Walsh stepped between us. Mr. Barrett, I suggest you leave before I arrest you for interfering with an investigation. Your clients will have access to counsel at the appropriate time. As security escorted him out, Barrett called back, This isn't over. The Pattersons have resources. They'll fight this. After he left, Connor sank into a chair. Jake's gonna lose it when they arrest him. He doesn't handle humiliation well. Walsh's radio crackled again. Detective, we have a situation. Subject has barricaded himself in his room. Parents are attempting to interfere with arrest, requesting immediate backup. On my way, Walsh responded. She looked at me. I need to handle this. Mills will stay with you, continue taking statements. We've arranged temporary protective housing through victim services. You'll be safe. As she headed for the door, I called out, Detective Walsh, be careful. When Jake feels cornered, he gets dangerous. She nodded grimly. We're prepared for that. Focus on healing. Let us handle Jake. After she left, I sat in the suddenly quiet room, surrounded by evidence bags and legal documents. Through the window, I could see news vans already gathering in the hospital parking lot. Someone had leaked the story. Riverside's golden boy was about to fall, and everyone wanted to watch. Connor reached over, squeezing my hand gently. You did the right thing, Leann. Finally, someone stood up to him. It doesn't feel right. It feels terrifying. Yeah, he agreed. But sometimes the right thing is the scariest thing, especially when it means admitting the people who should protect you are the ones hurting you most. The conference room at Riverside General had become an impromptu command center. Detective Mills coordinated incoming evidence while I sat wrapped in a blanket watching the investigation unfold like a movie I couldn't pause. The local news played silently on a wall-mounted television, showing aerial footage of my house surrounded by police cars. Jake Patterson, barricaded in family home, scrolled across the screen. In smaller text, star quarterback facing assault charges. Mills's phone rang constantly. Each call brought new information, another piece of the puzzle I'd been living inside without seeing the full picture. But nothing prepared me for Rosa walking through the door, still in her diner uniform, clutching a flash drive like a lifeline. "Leann, honey." She rushed over, careful not to jostle my injuries as she hugged me. "When I heard what happened, I came straight here." She turned to Detective Mills. "I have the parking lot footage. Everything from yesterday." Mills took the flash drive, immediately plugging it into his laptop. We watched in silence as the screen filled with high-definition footage of Jake destroying my laptop, grabbing my wrist, the violence clear even without sound. "There's more," Rosa said quietly. "I went back through the previous weeks. Your brother visited the diner multiple times when you weren't working. He'd sit in the parking lot watching, following your co-workers to their cars, asking questions about your schedule. He was stalking her," Mills stated flatly. "This shows premeditation planning, not just random acts of violence, but systematic control." The door opened again. An elderly man shuffled in, supported by a woman I recognized as his daughter. Mr. Thompson, our next-door neighbor, looked frailer than I remembered, but his eyes were sharp with purpose. "Detective Mills." His voice was stronger than his appearance suggested. "I'm Harold Thompson. I live next door to the Pattersons. I have something you need to see." His daughter helped him sit, then produced a tablet. "Dad installed security cameras last month after someone tried to break into his shed. One camera has a side angle that captures the Patterson kitchen window." My stomach dropped. This morning's attack filmed from another angle. "I didn't realize what I had until I reviewed the footage today," Mr. Thompson explained. "Been having trouble sleeping, so I was up early, saw the police cars later, and decided to check my recordings." Mills connected the tablet to the larger screen. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Jake throwing me against the counter, the kicks, my parents arriving and choosing to protect him instead of helping me. Every second of my humiliation and pain preserved in digital clarity. "I have 6 weeks of recordings," Mr. Thompson continued. "Multiple incidents. That boy shoving you on the back porch. Your parents watching from inside doing nothing. Arguments in the driveway where he'd grab you, shake you." "You saw all this?" My voice came out strangled. The old man's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, dear. I should have called someone sooner. Kept telling myself it was family business, not my place. But after today..." He shook his head. "In my 30 years as a cop, I saw too many cases where everyone stayed quiet until someone died. Couldn't let that happen again." Detective Mills was already calling Walsh, updating her on the new evidence. Through their conversation, I heard that Jake had finally surrendered after a 2-hour standoff. He was in custody, demanding his lawyer, still insisting I was lying. "There's someone else here," the desk nurse announced from the doorway. A young woman entered, petite, with long black hair and scared eyes. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her until she spoke. "I'm Melissa Chen," she said quietly. "Jake's ex-girlfriend from state. I heard he was arrested and I needed to come forward." Mills gestured to a chair. "Miss Chen, I understand you filed a complaint against Jake last year." "I tried to." Her hands twisted in her lap. "He seemed so charming at first, star athlete, confident, attentive. But when I tried to break up with him after he got violent, he went crazy. Showed up at my dorm at all hours. Followed me to classes. When I went to campus police, suddenly I started getting calls from the athletic department about how pressing charges would hurt the team. They pressured you to drop the complaint." "Pressured is a nice word for it." Melissa's voice grew stronger. "The coach personally visited my apartment, said Jake had problems but was getting help. That ruining his life wouldn't undo what happened. Then Jake's parents called. His mother actually offered me money to transfer schools. Mom tried to pay you off. I couldn't hide my shock. Melissa nodded. $20,000 to transfer and sign a non-disclosure agreement. When I refused, things got worse. My professors suddenly lost assignments. My financial aid got mysteriously delayed. Other football players would surround me at parties making threats disguised as jokes. So you dropped the charges, Mills concluded. I had to, but I kept everything. Text messages where Jake admitted to hurting me, voicemails from his parents, screenshots of threats from his teammates. She pulled out her phone. When I saw the news today, saw another girl going through what I did, but worse, because she couldn't even escape him at home. I couldn't stay silent. Mills began documenting her evidence while I sat in stunned silence. My parents hadn't just covered for Jake with me. They'd done this before, perfecting their system of protection and denial. The door burst open again. This time it was Maria, our former housekeeper. She looked nervous but determined, clutching a worn folder. "Miss Leann," she said in accented English, "I am so sorry. I should speak before, but I was afraid. Your parents, they threatened to call immigration if I say anything." "Maria, you're documented. You've been legal for years." "I know, but fear is powerful." She handed the folder to Mills. "I take pictures when I clean. Every bruise, every broken thing Jake destroyed in his anger. 3 years of evidence. I also have recordings." "Recordings." Mills leaned forward. "Your mother, she talked to me like I am furniture, invisible. She would call your father, plan how to hide Jake's violence, talk about paying off coaches, teachers, doctors who ask questions." Maria's face hardened. "I keep everything, for protection, for someday when someone brave enough to stop them." "You could get in trouble for recording without consent," Mills warned. "I know, but little girl getting hurt is worse than old woman getting in trouble." She patted my hand. "You were kind to me, Miss Leann. Only one in that house who treat me like person. I should have helped sooner." By evening, Detective Mills had compiled enough evidence to charge Jake with multiple felonies spanning years. My parents faced their own legal troubles, witnessed tampering, bribery, child endangerment from when I was still a minor, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. The news had exploded beyond Riverside. Sports news channels picked up the story of the star quarterback's fall. Social media buzzed with debates about athletic privilege and family violence. The university announced they were reviewing Jake's scholarship pending the legal outcome. Walsh returned as the sun set, looking exhausted but satisfied. "Jake's in county lockup. Bail hearing is tomorrow. The prosecutor is recommending no bail given the flight risk and danger to you." "How did he react to the arrest?" "About how you'd expect. Denied everything until we showed him the videos. Then he switched to claiming you provoked him. When that didn't work, he blamed the drug, said he wasn't himself." She sat down heavily. "Your parents have been charged as well. They're out on bail, but there's a restraining order. They can't contact you or come within 500 feet. "They must hate me." "They made their choices, Leann. Every time they covered for Jake, every time they blamed you, they chose this path." Walsh pulled out a card. "This is your victim advocate. She'll help you navigate the legal system, find permanent housing access, counseling services." As everyone prepared to leave, Connor lingered. "Leann, I meant what I said earlier. I have more videos, more evidence. Whatever you need to put him away, I'll provide. Some of the team is angry, but others? We've been waiting for someone to stop Jake for a long time." After he left, I sat in the quiet room, overwhelmed by the day's revelations. My brother wasn't just violent, he was a serial predator, protected by a system that valued his athletic potential over his victim's safety. My parents weren't just enablers. They were active conspirators who'd paid to silence anyone who threatened their golden child's future. But today, the silence had shattered. Rosa, Mr. Thompson, Melissa, Maria, Connor, all these people who'd witnessed pieces of the truth had finally come together. Their collective voices drowned out my family's lies. Dr. Martinez returned one last time to check on me before my transfer to the safe house. "You started something important today," she said. "Your courage gave others permission to speak. That's how change happens. One voice becomes many." As the victim services van pulled away from the hospital, I saw the news vans multiplying reporters preparing for live broadcasts. Tomorrow, Riverside would wake to a different story than the one they'd believed. The golden boy was tarnished beyond repair, and the family that polished his image while I bled would finally face judgment. For the first time in years, I took a deep breath without fear. It hurt. My ribs screamed in protest, but it was my pain, my breath, my choice, and that made all the difference. The safe house was a modest 2-story building tucked into a quiet neighborhood 40 minutes from Riverside. My room contained the basics: a bed dresser, small desk, and a window overlooking a garden someone had filled with sunflowers. After years in a house where violence could erupt at any moment, the peaceful simplicity felt like stepping into another world. On my second morning there, the house manager knocked gently. "Leann, you have a visitor. Says she's your aunt." Aunt Patricia stood in the common area, looking older than her 52 years, but radiating the same warm energy I remembered from childhood. She pulled me into a careful hug, mindful of my injuries. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I should have known. Should have done something." We sat on a worn couch while she explained her journey here. I saw the news at my flower shop, nearly dropped a vase of roses when Jake's picture came up, drove straight through the night from Cincinnati. "Mom must be furious you're here." Patricia's expression hardened. "Your mother and I haven't spoken in 2 years, not since I questioned why Jake got a new truck for wrecking his third car while you worked doubles to buy used textbooks." "I didn't know you'd fought about that." "We fought about a lot of things, mostly you." She took my hands gently. "I've watched Diane lose herself in Jake's success for years. Frank, too. It's like they decided he was their only child worth investing in." "He's special," I said automatically, then caught myself. "I mean, that's what they always said." "Special," Patricia snorted. "You know what's special working full-time while maintaining a 3.8 GPA, getting into nursing school on merit, not athletic quotas, being kind despite living with cruelty. That's special, Leann." Her words broke something loose inside me. I sobbed while she held me years of minimized achievements and dismissed dreams pouring out. She listened to every word, her own tears falling silently. "I need to show you something. Go," she said, finally pulling out her phone. "The family is imploding. Your cousin Sarah started a family group chat after the news broke. It's illuminating." The messages were a battlefield. Some relatives defended Jake and my parents, calling me ungrateful, attention-seeking, jealous. Others shared their own observations of Jake's temper, my parents' favoritism, the toxic dynamics they'd witnessed at family gatherings. Uncle Robert called me a liar. I read numbly. "Robert's an idiot who thinks football is a religion," Patricia dismissed. "But look at what Grandma Ellen wrote." I scrolled to find my paternal grandmother's message. "I've held my tongue for years, but no more." I watched that boy torment his sister while Frank and Diane made excuses. Leann was the only one who ever really talked to me, visited me, cared about more than my inheritance. If choosing sides means choosing between an abuser and his victim, I choose my granddaughter. Grandma said that she did more than that. Cut Jake and your parents out of her will this morning. Called her lawyer before breakfast. Patricia smiled grimly. "Your mother is beside herself. All that brown-nosing for nothing." My phone, silent for days on detectives' orders, suddenly buzzed with a notification. Walsh had cleared certain contacts, and the victim advocate had helped me set up filters. The message was from Charlotte Webb, Jake's girlfriend. "Can we talk? I need you to know I didn't know. I'm so sorry. He told me you were troubled, that you made things up. I believed him, and I am so ashamed." Patricia read over my shoulder. Poor girl. Jake probably had her convinced you were the villain. More messages flooded in as news spread. Teammates' girlfriends shared their own fears about Jake's temper. Former classmates recalled incidents they dismissed or ignored. Each story painted a clearer picture of who my brother really was beneath the golden boy facade. A knock interrupted. The advocate Linda entered with a grim expression. There's been a development. Jake made bail. What how? Your parents liquidated their retirement accounts. The judge set it at $500,000, but they managed it. He's on house arrest with an ankle monitor, but he's out. Fear flooded back instantly. The restraining order, still in effect. He can't come within 1,000 feet of you. Any violation sends him straight back to jail. Linda sat beside me. But I want you to be extra cautious. Men like Jake don't handle loss of control well. Patricia's phone rang. She answered, her face darkening as she listened. Are you sure? Okay, I'll tell her. What is it? That was your cousin Mike. He works at the country club where your parents golf. Says your father was there this morning drinking heavily, telling everyone you're having a mental breakdown. That Jake's being framed by a bitter sister who couldn't handle his success. Of course he is. The familiar weight of their denial settled over me. But here's the interesting part, Patricia continued. The club president shut him down, told Frank that 3 different members had complained about Jake's behavior at club events. Aggressive with female staff starting fights on the golf course. They'd been considering revoking the family membership even before this. Linda made notes. That's good. Community support matters in cases like this. The more people who speak up about Jake's pattern of behavior, the stronger the prosecution's case. We spent the afternoon strategizing. Patricia had taken family photos from various events, pointing out background moments I'd never noticed, Jake's hand gripping my arm too tight at Christmas, my forced smiles at his signing ceremony, the way I always positioned myself near exits when he was around. I started paying attention after that Thanksgiving, she admitted. Remember, Jake threw the gravy boat because you got compliments on your stuffing. He said it was an accident. Honey, nothing Jake did was accidental. Look at this picture from your high school graduation. See how your parents are positioned, both flanking Jake in his Letterman jacket while you're off to the side in your cap and gown, at your own graduation. Each photo revealed another truth I'd been trained not to see. The family narrative had been so carefully constructed around Jake's success that reality itself had warped to accommodate it. That evening, Patricia helped me draft a statement for the prosecutor. We documented every incident I could remember, cross-referencing with her photos and observations. The list grew longer than I'd expected, spanning years of violence disguised as sibling conflict. I need to ask you something difficult, Patricia said as we finished. Did the abuse ever go beyond physical violence? No, I said firmly. Jake's violence was about control, not that. He needed me functional enough to work to contribute to the household, to play the supporting sister role. He was smart about it, careful, until he wasn't. The drugs probably affected his judgment, Linda observed. Stimulant abuse can increase aggression and paranoia. Combined with steroid use, it's a dangerous cocktail. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a video message from Connor and 3 other teammates. They stood in what looked like Connor's basement, faces serious. Leann, we want you to know you have our support, Connor began. What Jake did was wrong. What we let him get away with was wrong. We're testifying. All of us. The boy beside him, Marcus, spoke up. Jake assaulted my younger brother at a pool party, held him underwater too long, called it toughening him up. I stayed quiet because of the team, but not anymore. He's been out of control for years, added David, the third boy. We've got stories, evidence, whatever helps put him away. The last teammate, Brian, looked directly at the camera. Some of the team is standing by him, calling us traitors. We don't care. Real men don't hurt women. Real teammates don't cover for abusers. After watching it twice, I set down the phone with shaking hands. The wall of silence that had protected Jake was crumbling from all sides. His teammates, his community, even his own family were finally seeing past the carefully maintained image to the monster beneath. Patricia stayed until visiting hours ended, promising to return tomorrow. As she left, she pressed something into my hand, a key. Hey, what's this? My spare house key. When this is over, when you're ready, you have a home with me in Cincinnati. A fresh start far from Riverside and everyone who failed you. She kissed my forehead. You're not alone anymore, sweetheart. You have family who actually loves you, not just your potential to support someone else's dreams. That night, I sat by my window watching the sunflowers sway in the evening breeze. Somewhere in Riverside, Jake was trapped in the house that had been his kingdom, wearing an ankle monitor instead of his Letterman jacket. My parents were probably strategizing with lawyers, liquidating assets, still choosing him over truth. But I wasn't in that house anymore. I was here surrounded by people who believe me, supported by voices brave enough to break their own silence. The Golden Boy's pedestal had shattered, and from its ruins my own story was finally being heard. The family that had protected Jake at my expense was dividing, choosing sides in a battle that should never have existed. But as Patricia's key weighed warm in my palm, I realized I was already building a new family, one founded on truth instead of lies, support instead of silence, love instead of fear. Tomorrow would bring more challenges. The legal system moves slowly, and Jake's defenders would fight hard. But tonight, for the first time in memory, I felt something more powerful than fear, hope. The courthouse in downtown Riverside stood like a brick fortress against the gray October sky. 3 weeks had passed since Jake's arrest, and today marked the first major hearing. I sat in the prosecutor's office, hands folded to stop their trembling, as Assistant District Attorney Veronica Sharp reviewed our strategy one final time. The defense will try to paint you as unstable, she explained, her voice calm but direct. Jealous of Jake's success, prone to exaggeration. They'll bring up your supposed attention-seeking behavior and try to reframe documented violence as normal sibling conflict. How do I counter that? You don't. You tell the truth. We have video evidence, medical records, multiple witnesses. Let them spin theories. Facts are on our side. Linda, my advocate, squeezed my shoulder. Remember, you're not on trial. Jake is. The walk to the courtroom felt endless. Reporters clustered outside despite the judge's orders limiting media access. I kept my head down, flanked by Patricia and Detective Walsh, trying to ignore the shouted questions and camera flashes. Inside, the gallery was packed. The town had split into clear factions, Jake's supporters on one side wearing Riverside football colors and my supporters on the other. Rosa sat in the front row with Mr. Thompson, Maria, and several coworkers from the diner. Behind them, Connor and his group of teammates who'd turned witness. My parents entered with Jake and his legal team. Mom wore her best dress suit, the one she saved for church fundraisers, styled to Project Respectability. Dad looked haggard, his usual confidence replaced by grim determination. But it was Jake who drew my attention. He'd lost weight. The jail diet and lack of performance-enhancing drugs had deflated his imposing physique, but his eyes remained the same, cold, calculating, flickering between rage and practiced innocence. When he saw me, his lips curved into that familiar smirk that had preceded so much pain. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Catherine Morrison took her seat, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no tolerance for theatrics. She'd already denied several defense motions to dismiss charges, suggesting she saw through their tactics. The hearing focused on bail modification. Jake's lawyer, Thomas Brennan, argued that house arrest was excessive for a first-time offender with deep community ties. "My client has complied with all bail conditions," Brennan stated smoothly. "He's a young man whose promising future is being destroyed by unsubstantiated allegations and family dysfunction." ADA Sharp stood. "Your Honor, the people have new evidence of bail violations." Mr. Patterson was observed at locations explicitly forbidden by the restraining order. She presented surveillance footage from 3 days prior Jake at the gas station where I'd once worked asking customers about my whereabouts. Another video showed him parked outside Rosa's diner at 2 in the morning, technically maintaining distance, but clearly surveilling. Furthermore, Sharp continued, we have documented attempts to intimidate witnesses. Connor took the stand describing text messages from unknown numbers threatening him if he testified. Marcus followed detailing how Jake's supporters had vandalized his car spray painting "traitor" across the windshield. Then came the moment I dreaded. Sharp called me to testify about the latest violations. As I took the stand, Jake's stare burned into me. Mom clutched Dad's arm, her face a mask of desperate denial. "It's Miss Patterson," Sharp began gently. "Can you describe the events of October 15th? "I was at the pharmacy in Riverside Commons," I said, voice steadier than expected. "When I came out, Jake's truck was parked next to my borrowed car. He wasn't in it, but there was a note on my windshield." "Oh, what did the note say?" "You're destroying our family. Stop this now or lose everything." "Did you recognize the handwriting?" "It was Jake's. He always makes his capital letters distinctive, like he's signing autographs." Brennan objected repeatedly, but Judge Morrison allowed the testimony. The note preserved as evidence was displayed for the court. Even from across the room, I saw several jury members recoil at its threatening tone. On cross-examination, Brennan lived up to his reputation for aggressive tactics. "Miss Patterson, isn't it true you've been jealous of your brother's success since high school?" "No. But you must have resented the attention he received. Star athlete scholarship recipient, town hero. I was proud of Jake's achievements until he started using them as weapons." "Weapons. That's rather dramatic, don't you think?" "Is breaking 3 of my ribs dramatic? Mr. Brennan is destroying my laptop with all my schoolwork dramatic? Is threatening to kill me if I leave dramatic?" The lawyer faltered slightly. "My client denies making any death threats." "Your client denies a lot of things. That doesn't make them untrue." Judge Morrison intervened. "Mr. Brennan, move along." As the defense continued their character assassination, something unexpected happened. Charlotte Webb, Jake's girlfriend, entered the courtroom. She looked pale, nervous, but determined. Whispers rippled through Jake's supporters. At the next recess, she approached the prosecutor. 20 minutes later, court reconvened with Charlotte as a surprise witness for the prosecution. "Miss Webb," Sharp began, "you were in a relationship with the defendant." "Yes, for 8 months. I ended it last week." "Why?" Charlotte took a shaky breath. "Because I finally saw who he really was. He told me his sister was disturbed making up stories. But then I saw the evidence, the videos, and I realized he'd grabbed me the same way, controlled me. I just hadn't wanted to see it." "Did the defendant ever discuss his sister with you?" "Constantly. He was obsessed with her leaving for nursing school. Said she was abandoning the family, being selfish. He'd get this look when talking about her, like she was property that was misbehaving." Jake's face darkened. His lawyer whispered urgently, but the damage was done. His own girlfriend had confirmed the prosecution's narrative. Charlotte continued. "Last Tuesday, he called me from house arrest. Said if I really loved him, I'd help him handle Leann, make her drop the charges. When I refused, he said I was just another disloyal woman who needed to be taught a lesson." "Did you feel threatened?" "Terrified. That's when I knew Leann had been telling the truth all along." The judge had heard enough. Bail is revoked. The defendant will remain in custody until trial. Additionally, I'm issuing extended restraining orders covering all prosecution witnesses. Jake erupted. "This is bullshit. She's lying. They're all lying." He lunged toward me before deputies restrained him. "You destroyed everything, my scholarship, my future. I'll kill you." The courtroom exploded in chaos. Mom screamed. Dad tried to reach Jake. Deputies swarmed, dragging my brother out as he continued threatening me, his mask of innocence completely shattered. Judge Morrison banged her gavel repeatedly. Clear the courtroom, Mr. Patterson just added witness intimidation and criminal threats to his charges. Get him out of my sight. As order slowly returned, Mom turned to me, tears streaming. How could you? He's your brother, your own brother. He's my abuser, I replied quietly, and you chose him over me, every time. Patricia moved between us protectively. Diane, you heard him threaten to kill her in open court, and you're still defending him. He's upset. He didn't mean it. He meant every word. Charlotte interjected, her voice stronger now. Just like he meant it when he hurt Leann, when he hurt me, when he hurt Melissa. How many victims does he need before you see the truth? Security escorted my parents out, their perfect family image destroyed beyond repair. Jake's supporters filed out quietly, some looking shaken by what they'd witnessed. A few approached me afterward, mumbling apologies, admitting they'd suspected but hadn't wanted to believe. Outside the courthouse, Sharp addressed the media briefly. Today's events speak for themselves. Mr. Patterson showed his true nature, validating every concern about his danger to the community. We'll proceed to trial with additional charges. That evening, I sat with my support team at a quiet restaurant processing the day's drama. Rosa raised her coffee cup in a toast to the truth finally coming out. To Jake finally facing consequences, Connor added. To Leann finding her voice, Patricia finished. As we clinked cups, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number, but the sender identified herself immediately. This is Grandma Ellen. Watch the news. So proud of your courage. Jake showed everyone who he really is. Your parents are fools. When you're ready, I'd love to have you visit. You were always my favorite grandchild. Now everyone knows why. Love, Grandma. For the first time since this ordeal began, I smiled genuinely. Jake was behind bars where he belonged. The town had seen his true face. My parents could no longer pretend their golden boy was innocent, and I had a growing network of support from childhood friends to family members who'd chosen truth over comfortable lies. The trial still loomed ahead. There would be more difficult days, more testimony, more attempts to blame me for Jake's choices, but today had proven something vital. When you speak truth consistently, eventually the lies collapse under their own weight. Jake had threatened to kill me in front of a judge, as prosecutors, and dozens of witnesses. He'd given us the final evidence needed to ensure he'd face serious time. His desperate need for control had ultimately sealed his fate. As we left the restaurant, Patricia linked her arm through mine. You know what this means. No more looking over your shoulder. No more fear. He's shown everyone exactly what you've been living with. She was right. Jake's mask hadn't just slipped, it had shattered completely, revealing the monster my family had protected at my expense. Now everyone could see what I'd seen for years. And finally, I wasn't the only one calling it wrong. The week following Jake's courtroom explosion transformed Riverside in ways I never imagined. What had started as a legal case became a town-wide reckoning with uncomfortable truths about power privilege and the price of silence. I watched from the safe house as the story dominated local news. The footage of Jake threatening to kill me in court had been replayed dozens of times each broadcast, stripping away another layer of his carefully crafted image. The golden boy was fool's gold, and everyone could finally see it. You need to see this, Linda said, entering the common room with her tablet. The Riverside Gazette published an investigation. The headline read, "A Pattern of Protection, How Riverside Failed Multiple Victims." The article detailed not just Jake's history, but the systematic way coaches, teachers, and administrators had covered for him. Reporter Michelle Santos had interviewed 15 people who'd witnessed Jake's violence over the years, but felt pressured to stay quiet. Listen to this quote, Linda read aloud. We all knew Jake Patterson had a temper, but he was our ticket to state championships. When winning matters more than safety, victims pay the price. That's from an anonymous assistant coach. My phone buzzed constantly with messages of support. Former classmates I barely knew shared their own Jake stories. The girl who transferred junior year after Jake cornered her at a party. The freshman teammate who quit football after Jake's hazing left him with a concussion. Each revelation painted a darker picture of enabled abuse. That afternoon, something unexpected happened at Mel's diner. Rosa called to tell me about it, her voice mixing pride and amazement. "You won't believe this, honey." During lunch rush, Sarah Hendricks stood up in the middle of the dining room and started talking about you, about Jake, about how this town protects its sports heroes while their victims suffer in silence. Sarah Hendricks was the school board president's daughter, a pillar of Riverside respectability. Her public support meant something. Then others started standing up, Rosa continued, one by one sharing stories, not just about Jake, but about the culture that created him. By the time they finished, half the diner was in tears. The other half was taking notes, planning some kind of community response. That community response materialized faster than anyone expected. Within days, a group called Riverside Stands Together formed, led by an unlikely alliance of domestic violence survivors, concerned parents, and former athletes who'd witnessed the toxic culture firsthand. Their first action was a candlelight vigil outside the courthouse. Patricia drove me past it, though I wasn't ready to attend. Hundreds of people filled the square holding signs that read, "Believe survivors," and "No more cover-ups." At the center, a group of Jake's former teammates stood in their Letterman jackets, not in support of him, but in repudiation of what he represented. Connor spoke at the vigil, his voice carrying across the crowd. We were taught that winning excused everything. That talent meant immunity. That brotherhood meant silence when our brothers did wrong. We were taught lies, and people got hurt because we believed them. The ripple effects reached Riverside High School next. Students organized walkouts demanding policy changes. The principal, who'd once proclaimed Jake the pride of Riverside, announced his early retirement. The athletic director faced calls for his resignation after more stories surfaced about ignored complaints against star athletes. Not everyone supported the awakening. Jake's die-hard defenders pushed back, organizing counter-protests claiming he was being canceled for unproven allegations. They ignored the video evidence, the multiple witnesses, his own courtroom confession. To them, he remained the hero, and I remained the villain who destroyed him. One particularly nasty group created a social media page called Justice for Jake Patterson, spreading lies about me, posting old photos manipulated to make me look unstable, sharing my work schedule at the diner before I'd gone into hiding. They doxed Rosa for supporting me, vandalized Mr. Thompson's garden, left threatening messages for any business that publicly stood with me. But for every attack, more supporters emerged. The Riverside Business Association released a statement condemning the harassment. Local churches organized safety walks. The university's Women's Center sent representatives to help establish support programs. Then came the interview that changed everything. Coach Michael Stevens, Riverside High's head football coach for 20 years, agreed to speak with Michelle Santos on camera. He looked older than his 55 years, worn down by the weight of what he'd enabled. "I failed those kids," he admitted, staring at his hands. "Not just Leann Patterson, though God knows I failed her worst. I failed every young woman Jake hurt while I made excuses. Failed every teammate who tried to report problems only to be told to focus on the game." "Why speak out now?" Santos asked. "Because I can't live with it anymore. Winning meant everything to me. State championships, college scholarships, town pride. I told myself I was helping these boys build futures. But what kind of future was I building for Jake? I taught him he was untouchable, that his talent excused any behavior. I created a monster and armed him with immunity." "What about the administration, the parents?" Stevens laughed bitterly. "Everyone was complicit. Jake's parents bought new uniforms every year, funded training camps, hosted team dinners. They owned us. When concerns arose, they'd remind us how much they'd invested, how much the program needed their support. Did you know about the violence at home? I suspected. Saw bruises on Leann at games, noticed how she flinched around her brother, but I told myself it wasn't my business. That was my cowardice talking. The interview aired prime time, sending shockwaves through Riverside. Stevens resigned the next day, followed by 3 assistant coaches. The school board called emergency meetings. Parents demanded answers. In the midst of the chaos, I received an unexpected visitor at the safe house. Melissa Chen had driven down from state, bringing with her a thick folder and quiet determination. "I've been following everything," she said as we sat in the garden, watching the town finally see what we survivors knew all along. It made me realize I have more to contribute than just my own story. She'd opened the folder, revealing printed emails, text messages, and documents. After I dropped the charges against Jake, I started researching. Found other girls he'd hurt at state, connected with athletes from rival schools who had stories about him, built a network of survivors who were too scared to speak alone. How many? 14 confirmed, probably more who haven't come forward. She pulled out a printed spreadsheet. Dates, incidents, cover-ups. The pattern goes back to his freshman year of high school. You weren't his first victim, Leann. You were just trapped with him longest. The documentation was staggering. Jake had left a trail of trauma across years and state lines enabled by institutions that valued his throwing arm over their students' safety. Each story echoed familiar themes: initial charm escalating, control violence, then institutional pressure to stay quiet. "We want to testify," Melissa said. "All of us. Show the jury this isn't isolated, that Jake's pattern of violence was known and ignored by multiple systems meant to protect us." That evening, the safe house felt less like hiding and more like headquarters for a revolution. Linda coordinated with prosecutors to integrate the new witnesses. Patricia fielded calls from family members choosing sides. I worked with Melissa to reach out to other survivors, offering support whether they testified or not. The town's transformation accelerated. Riverside High implemented new policies for reporting concerns about athletes. The Boosters Club faced restructuring after several major donors withdrew support. Youth sports leagues brought in experts to teach about healthy competition versus toxic culture. Not all changes came easily. Jake's supporters vandalized the Vigil Memorial. Someone threw a brick through Rosa's diner window with a note calling her a traitor to Riverside pride. The divide in town deepened, with some businesses putting up signs declaring their stance: "We believe survivors," versus "innocent until proven guilty." Through it all, letters poured into the prosecutor's office. Former teachers admitting they'd been pressured to inflate Jake's grades. Parents describing incidents at youth sports events. Even a retired referee who'd been told to let boys be boys when Jake played dirty. My favorite letter came from an unexpected source: Jake's middle school art teacher, Mrs. Pemberton, now in her 80s. "I remember young Leann Patterson," she wrote, "quiet, creative kind, always cleaning up after her brother's messes, literal and figurative. I watched that family dim her light to fuel his fire. I should have said something then. I'm saying it now, that girl deserved better from all of us." 3 weeks after the courtroom incident, Riverside held its homecoming game. For the first time in 2 decades, the stadium was half empty. The team, depleted by suspensions and transfers, lost badly. Some called it karma. Others mourned the end of an era. But in the parking lot outside Riverside Stands Together held an alternative gathering. Survivors shared stories. Advocates provided resources. Former athletes spoke about reforming sports culture. The crowd was smaller than a typical game, but the energy felt different: hopeful rather than hostile, supportive rather than aggressive. Connor texted me photos from the event. In one, his group of testifying teammates stood with other athletes who'd rejected the toxic culture. Their signs read, "Real men don't abuse," and "Strength means protection, not pain." This is what should have happened years ago, his message read. We're rebuilding what winning means in this town. It starts with protecting people like you instead of people like Jake. That night, I sat with Patricia watching the news coverage. Riverside's reckoning had become a statewide story about athletic privilege and institutional complicity. Experts discussed the Patterson case as a cautionary tale about hero worship and enabling abuse. You started something bigger than Jake, Patricia observed. This whole town is examining its soul. I just wanted to be safe, I replied. I never meant to cause all this. You didn't cause it, honey. You revealed it. There's a difference. The rot was already there, hidden under Friday night lights and trophy cases. You just forced everyone to see it. Outside, a storm rolled in, washing the streets clean. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, legal proceedings, community tensions, family fractures that might never heal. But tonight, Riverside was different than it had been a month ago. The conversation had changed, the silence had broken. And somewhere in county lockup, Jake Patterson sat alone, his kingdom of enablers, crumbling, his future destroyed not by my truth, but by his own violence. The golden boy had fallen, and in his wake, a community was learning that real strength meant protecting the vulnerable, not the victorious. The Miller County Courthouse conference room became my second home as November arrived with early snow and long preparation sessions. Ada Veronica Sharp had assembled a formidable team, 2 assistant prosecutors, a victim witness coordinator, and a forensic technology specialist to handle the digital evidence. Across the polished table, they spread out the case like a vast puzzle, each piece crucial to the complete picture. Trial starts in 3 weeks, Sharp announced during one afternoon session. The defense filed their witness list. They're bringing in character witnesses, a psychologist to testify about sibling rivalry dynamics, and surprisingly, your mother. The room fell silent. I stared at the witness list, seeing Mom's name typed in stark black letters. Patricia, sitting beside me, gripped my hand under the table. She's testifying against me. That appears to be the strategy, Sharp confirmed gently. They'll likely use her to paint a picture of a difficult daughter, jealous of her brother's success. It's desperate, but juries can be swayed by a mother's tears. I thought of all the times Mom had chosen Jake over me, but this felt like the ultimate betrayal. To sit in a courtroom and lie to protect the son who'd broken her daughter's ribs. How did a mother do that? We'll be ready for her, Linda assured me. Your mother's credibility will crumble under cross-examination, especially when we present evidence of her covering up previous incidents. The next hours were spent in mock testimony. Sharp's colleague Marcus Chen, no relation to Melissa, played the role of defense attorney, attacking my credibility with ruthless efficiency. He brought up every mistake I'd ever made, every time I'd been late to family dinner, every argument with my parents. It was brutal but necessary preparation. You claim Jake was violent, but didn't. You once slammed a door so hard the frame cracked. Marcus pressed during one session. I was 17 and upset about missing prom because Jake had given me a black eye. Yes, I slammed a door. No, that's not equivalent to systematic physical abuse. But it shows you have a temper. It shows I was a frustrated teenager living with violence. There's a difference between property damage and breaking someone's bones. Sharp nodded approvingly. Good, don't let them create false equivalencies. A slammed door isn't assault. Fighting back isn't the same as being an aggressor. As we prepared my testimony, the prosecutor's office received an avalanche of new evidence. Connor and his teammates had been thorough, providing hours of recorded conversations, text messages, and social media posts. The forensic specialist, David Kim, worked tirelessly to authenticate and organize everything. Look at this, David showed us during one session. Jake's text to Connor after assaulting you in August had to put Leann in her place again. Bitch thinks she can just leave whenever she wants. She'll learn. Connor had dozens more like it. Jake bragging about controlling me, planning to sabotage my nursing school plans, discussing with teammates how to ensure I stayed under the family's thumb. Each message stripped away any pretense that the violence was spontaneous or provoked. Meanwhile, Melissa Chen coordinated with the other survivors. She'd convinced 7 women to testify, creating a pattern spanning 6 years. Their testimonies would be limited. The judge had ruled that only certain aspects could be presented to establish pattern behavior, but their presence would be powerful. "We're not just prosecuting Jake for what he did to you," Sharp explained. "We're showing the jury who Jake Patterson really is, a serial abuser who used violence to control women enabled by systems that protected him." My days fell into a routine. Mornings at the safe house, afternoons in trial, prep evenings with Patricia going over family photos and documents that might be used as evidence. We found pictures that told stories I hadn't recognized before, me wearing long sleeves in summer to hide bruises standing apart from the family group, Jake's hand always possessively on my shoulder when posed together. "This one's from your college acceptance celebration," Patricia noted, showing me a photo from the previous spring. "Look at Jake's face." While everyone else smiled at the camera, Jake stared at me with undisguised fury. His knuckles were white where he gripped his beer bottle. I remembered that night he'd cornered me later, warning that I'd better not think I was actually leaving. The defense team, meanwhile, tried every tactic to derail the prosecution. They filed motions to exclude the video evidence, claiming illegal recording. Judge Morrison denied them. They argued Jake's drug use constituted diminished capacity. The judge ruled that voluntary intoxication wasn't a defense. They even tried to have me declared a hostile witness to limit my testimony. "They're getting desperate," Sharp told me after another failed motion. "Good. Desperate lawyers make mistakes." 2 weeks before trial, I had to face another ordeal, the deposition. In a sterile conference room at Brennan's law firm, I sat across from Jake for the first time since his arrest. He wore an expensive suit that couldn't hide his jail pallor, but his eyes remained coldly confident. "Please state your name for the record," Brennan began. For 6 hours, he grilled me about every detail of our lives. Jake watched with that familiar smirk, occasionally whispering to his lawyer. When Brennan asked about the alleged staircase incident, Jake actually chuckled. "Is something funny, Mr. Patterson?" Sharp interjected. "Just remembering how clumsy Leann's always been," Jake replied smoothly, "always tripping over her own feet." His arrogance was his weakness. Every dismissive comment, every rolled eye, every smirk was caught on the deposition video. He couldn't help himself. The golden boy still believed he was untouchable. The breaking point came when Brennan showed photos of my injuries, trying to suggest they were self-inflicted or accidental. "These bruises on your arms," he pointed. "Couldn't they have come from your work at the diner, carrying heavy trays?" "No," I said firmly. "Those are finger marks from Jake grabbing me. 4 fingers on the outside, thumb on the inside. Classic defensive wounds." Jake leaned forward. "She's lying. She's always been jealous." "Mr. Patterson, you'll have your chance to testify," Judge Morrison interrupted via video link. "Until then, remain silent." But Jake couldn't stop. The mask slipped repeatedly as he muttered denials, shook his head theatrically, and made faces trying to discredit me. Brennan looked increasingly frustrated with his client's inability to play the victim convincingly. After the deposition, Sharp was elated. "He just gave us hours of footage showing his true character. No jury will buy the gentle giant wrongly accused act after seeing that performance." As trial approached, the safe house became a refuge from the mounting pressure. Other residents shared their own stories of preparing to face their abusers in court. We supported each other through panic attacks and sleepless nights. One evening, a new resident arrived, Charlotte Webb, Jake's ex-girlfriend. Her family had disowned her for testifying against him, and she needed somewhere safe to stay during the trial. "I'm sorry," she said when she saw me. "I enabled him for months, believed his lies about you." "You're here now," I replied. "That's what matters." We spent hours talking. Charlotte revealed more about Jake's behavior during their relationship, the controlling texts, the isolation from friends, the rage when she mentioned my name. She documented everything after growing suspicious, creating another cache of evidence for the prosecution. He told me once that you were the only person who really knew him, Charlotte said. That scared him. He couldn't charm you like everyone else because you'd seen behind the mask too long. 3 days before trial, my phone rang with an unknown number. Against Linda's advice, I answered. Leann, Mom's voice sounded hollow-aged. Please don't hang up. I almost did, but something made me listen. I know you hate me, she continued. Maybe you should. I've been a terrible mother, but I need you to know I'm scared of what I've done, of what we've created. Then why are you testifying for him? A long pause. Because I don't know how to stop. We've given everything to Jake, mortgaged our future, our relationships, our souls. If he goes to prison, what was it all for? It was for nothing, Mom. It was always for nothing. Jake isn't special. He's sick, and you helped make him that way. Your father says if I don't testify, he'll divorce me. Take everything. Then let him. Choose your daughter for once. She hung up, leaving me staring at the phone. Patricia found me crying in the garden, mourning the mother I'd never truly had. She made her choice, Patricia said softly. Now you make yours. Choose truth. Choose healing. Choose the life Jake and your parents tried to steal from you. That night, I sat with Charlotte and the other safe house residents sharing stories and strategies for staying strong during testimony. We were a strange sisterhood, bonded by survival and determination to see justice done. Sharp called with final instructions. Get rest. Eat well. Remember, you've already done the hardest part, surviving and speaking up. The trial is just telling your truth to 12 more people. As I prepared for bed, I found a note slipped under my door. Rosa's handwriting, the whole diner is rooting for you. We'll be in the courtroom every single day. You're not alone. You never were. We just didn't know how to help until you showed us the way. Tomorrow would begin the final chapter of this ordeal. Jake would face judgment for his crimes. Mom would perjure herself for her golden child. The town would watch their hero's complete fall from grace. But I would be ready, surrounded by chosen family and survivors who understood, armed with truth and evidence, supported by a community, finally willing to see reality. I would walk into that courtroom and reclaim my story from those who tried to silence it. The Golden Boy's trial was about to begin, and this time his victim had become a warrior. The first day of trial arrived with unexpected sleet coating Riverside in a shell of ice that made everything treacherous. Fitting weather for what was ahead. Patricia drove carefully to the courthouse where media vans lined the streets, despite the judge's strict orders about coverage. This case had grown beyond Riverside. It was now a symbol of athletic privilege and institutional failure across the state. Inside the courtroom gallery filled quickly, I sat with the prosecution team trying to steady my breathing as familiar faces filed in. Rosa commanded a row with my coworkers from the diner. Connor and his testifying teammates took seats behind us, their presence a silent wall of support. On the other side, Jake's supporters clustered together, including several prominent boosters and my parents. Mom avoided eye contact, staring at her clutched hands. Dad sat rigid, his jaw working like he was chewing nails. Between them, an empty seat waited for their golden boy. When the bailiffs brought Jake in, I barely recognized him. 3 months in county lockup had transformed him. Gone was the swaggering athlete. In his place sat a diminished figure in an ill-fitting suit. His eyes, though, remained unchanged, cold, calculating, searching for weakness. Judge Morrison called the court to order. She denied multiple defense motions for change of venue, stating firmly that Jake would face justice in the community he'd terrorized. The jury, 7 women and 5 men, looked serious, aware of their responsibility. Veronica Sharp's opening statement was masterful. She walked the jury through the pattern of abuse using a timeline board that showed escalating violence over years. Each incident was marked with evidence, medical records, photos, witness statements. Jake Patterson was given a gift, she began, athletic talent that opened doors, created opportunities, promised a bright future. But he twisted that gift into a weapon, used his status as armor, and turned his family home into a kingdom where he ruled through fear. She clicked through photos of my injuries, each image drawing gasps from some jurors. Leann Patterson's only crime was wanting to live her own life. For that, her brother broke her ribs. Her parents chose his football career over her safety. An entire community looked away while she suffered. Thomas Brennan's defense opening tried to reframe everything. Jake was a pressured young man. Sibling conflicts were normal. I was jealous, unstable, prone to exaggeration. He painted Jake as the real victim of family dysfunction, of media persecution, of a sister who couldn't accept his success. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you'll hear a lot of dramatic testimony, Brennan said smoothly, but drama isn't fact. Emotion isn't evidence. Jake Patterson is a young man whose life is being destroyed by misunderstandings and family resentment blown out of proportion. The prosecution's case began with Officer Daniel Park, first responder to the house that October morning. His body camera footage played on the courtroom screens, showing my parents coaching my story while I struggled to breathe. The victim was clearly in severe pain, Officer Park testified, but the parents seemed more concerned about controlling the narrative than getting her medical help. Dr. Martinez took the stand next, her testimony devastating in its clinical precision. She detailed every injury, explaining how the patterns indicated deliberate, repeated assault. Her documentation, spanning 2 years, painted a picture of escalating violence that no one could dismiss as accidents. In my medical opinion, she stated clearly, Leann Patterson is lucky to be alive. The force used in the October assault could easily have punctured a lung or lacerated her liver. Brennan tried to shake her on cross-examination. Isn't it possible these injuries came from multiple accidents over time? No, Dr. Martinez replied flatly. The defensive wound patterns, the concentration of injuries where clothing would hide them, the escalating severity, this is textbook domestic violence. The video evidence came next. The jury watched Jake destroy my laptop in the diner parking lot, his face contorted with rage. They saw Mr. Thompson's footage of the kitchen assault, my parents choosing Jake over my broken body. They heard Jake's jailhouse calls where he had threatened witnesses and raged about destroying me for ruining his life. Connor's testimony brought unexpected emotion. The linebacker, known for his stoicism on the field, broke down, describing years of witnessing Jake's violence and saying nothing. I was a coward, he admitted. Every time Jake hurt Leann, every time he bragged about controlling her, I should have spoken up, but I was scared. We all were. Jake had this way of making you complicit, like speaking out would destroy everything we'd worked for. He played audio recordings from team parties, Jake's voice clear, boasting about keeping me in line, planning to sabotage my nursing school plans, laughing about how his parents would cover for anything. The defendant said, and I quote, Leann thinks she can leave. I'll break every bone in her body before I let her abandon this family. Connor looked directly at Jake. I should have reported that threat immediately. I'll regret my silence forever. The parade of witnesses continued for 3 days. Rosa testified about the parking lot assault. Mr. Thompson described watching years of violence through his window. Maria, our former housekeeper, provided recordings of my parents planning cover-ups. But the most powerful testimony came from the other survivors. Judge Morrison had allowed limited testimony about Jake's pattern of violence against women. One by one, they took the stand: college students, young professionals, women who'd carried their trauma silently until now. Melissa Chen was particularly compelling. Jake Patterson doesn't see women as people, she stated. We're possessions, things to control. When we resist, he responds with violence. Always escalating, always enabled. On the fourth day, the defense began their case. They brought character witnesses, coaches who praised Jake's leadership teachers who'd been charmed or intimidated into compliance teammates still loyal to their captain. But their testimony felt hollow against the weight of evidence. Then came the moment I dreaded. Mom took the stand for the defense. She wore her church dress, the navy one with small flowers. Her hands shook as she was sworn in. When Brennan asked her to describe our family, she painted a Norman Rockwell picture that had never existed. Leann was always difficult, she said, not looking at me. Jealous of Jake's achievements, she'd make up stories for attention, exaggerate normal sibling squabbles. Did you ever see Jake physically harm Leann? Never, Mom lied smoothly. He was protective of her. Any injuries she had came from her own clumsiness or her job at that diner. Sharp's cross-examination was surgical. She presented Mom with the kitchen video, forcing her to watch herself choose Jake over my broken body. Mrs. Patterson, in this video, are you telling your injured daughter to lie to doctors? I was trying to keep the family together, Mom whispered. By coaching her to hide assault. It wasn't assault, it was a misunderstanding. Sharp played audio of Mom on the phone with Dad. We need to get our stories straight. If they drug test Jake, we're all finished. Still a misunderstanding. Mom crumbled. You don't understand the pressure. Jake's scholarship was our retirement plan. Everything we'd invested, sacrificed. So you sacrificed your daughter. I didn't mean it wasn't supposed to. Mrs. Patterson, did you ever love Leann as much as Jake? The courtroom held its breath. Mom finally looked at me, tears streaming. I loved what Jake could become. I forgot to love who Leann already was. The admission hung in the air like a physical blow. Several jurors looked disgusted. Jake's facade cracked as he realized his mother had just destroyed her own credibility and his defense. The biggest shock came when Brennan called Jake to testify. Sharp had predicted he'd stay silent, but Jake's arrogance demanded center stage. He took the stand with remnants of his old swagger, clearly believing he could charm the jury like he'd charmed so many others. For an hour, Brennan led him through softball questions. Jake painted himself as a devoted brother, dealing with a troubled sister. He admitted to arguments, but denied any violence. He claimed the videos were misinterpreted and the witnesses were lying for attention. Then Sharp began her cross-examination and Jake's mask disintegrated. Mr. Patterson, you claim you never hurt your sister. How do you explain this medical documentation of repeated injuries? She's clumsy, always has been. Clumsy enough to break her own ribs. Accidents happen. Sharp played the kitchen video. Is this an accident? She provoked me, trying to leave on my important day. So you did assault her. It wasn't assault, it was discipline. The courtroom erupted. Judge Morrison banged her gavel as Jake realized what he'd said. Brennan looked like he wanted to crawl under the defense table. Discipline? Sharp pressed. You believe you had the right to discipline your adult sister? Oh, she was being selfish. Abandoning the family, someone had to keep her in line. Keep her in line like you kept Melissa Chen in line, like Charlotte Webb. They're all lying. They're jealous, vindictive. Like your sister. Exactly like her. None of them appreciate what I sacrificed, what I could have become. I'm special. I matter. They're nothing. The spiral was complete. Jake's rage consumed him as he ranted about ungrateful women, his stolen future, the conspiracy against him. Judge Morrison threatened contempt charges, but Jake couldn't stop. Years of narcissistic rage poured out, confirming everything the prosecution had argued. When Brennan finally got Jake off the stand, the damage was irreversible. The golden boy had revealed the monster beneath, and everyone had seen it. Closing arguments felt almost anticlimactic. Sharp methodically reviewed the evidence, while Brennan desperately tried to reframe Jake's testimony as stress-induced. but the jury's faces showed they'd made their decisions. Jake Patterson had every advantage, Sharp concluded. Talent support opportunities. He chose violence. He chose control. He chose to terrorize his sister while his parents chose to enable him. Today, you can choose justice. We waited 3 hours for the verdict. 3 hours that felt like years. When the bailiff announced the jury had reached decisions, the courtroom packed again. Jake sat between his lawyers, finally looking afraid. My parents huddled together, isolated even from Jake's remaining supporters. On the charge of assault causing serious bodily injury, we find the defendant guilty. Jake didn't move, couldn't process that consequences had finally found him. Mom sobbed. Dad stared at nothing. Their golden boy was just another convicted felon. Judge Morrison set sentencing for the following month, remanding Jake to custody. As bailiffs prepared to lead him away, he turned to me one last time. But instead of rage, I saw something worse: emptiness. The golden boy was gone, leaving only the hollow shell of who he might have been. "You did it," Patricia whispered, holding me as I shook. "You told the truth, and the truth won." But watching my family shatter completely, I felt no victory, only relief that the nightmare was ending and grief for the brother Jake could have been if anyone had told him no before it was too late. The month between verdict and sentencing passed in a blur of victim impact statements, media interviews. I mostly declined, and watching my hometown grapple with its complicity. The conviction of Jake Patterson had become a mirror Riverside couldn't avoid looking into, and the reflection was ugly. I spent those weeks preparing my statement with Linda's help, trying to condense years of trauma into words that might make the judge understand the full weight of what Jake had stolen from me. Not just safety or peace, but the fundamental right to exist without fear in my own home. The sentencing arrived on a bitter December morning. The courthouse steps were cleared of ice but treacherous with the weight of anticipation. Inside the gallery overflowed again. Jake's supporters had dwindled to a handful of die-hard boosters and my parents. My side had grown. Survivors from across the state had come to witness justice being served. Jake entered in shackles this time, the last vestige of his privilege stripped away. The orange jumpsuit hung loose on his diminished frame. He kept his eyes down, all swagger finally beaten out of him by the reality of consequences. Judge Morrison began by addressing the pre-sentencing report. Jake had shown no remorse during psychological evaluation, still blaming me for his downfall. The report recommended significant prison time, noting his high risk for reoffending and complete lack of accountability. "Before I pronounce sentence, we'll hear victim impact statements," Judge Morrison announced. "Ms. Patterson, you may begin." I stood on unsteady legs, gripping the paper I'd written and rewritten dozens of times. At the podium, I looked at Jake one last time, then focused on the judge. "Your Honor, I've been asked to explain how Jake Patterson's violence affected my life. The truth is, I don't remember life without fear of my brother. My earliest memories include learning to recognize his moods, to make myself small when he was angry, to hide the bruises he gave me for imagined sins." My voice grew stronger as I continued. "Jake stole my childhood by making home a battlefield. He stole my education by destroying my work and threatening me for succeeding. He stole my relationships by isolating me from anyone who might help. He stole my health with broken bones and constant stress. He stole my family by turning our parents into his enablers." I turned to look at my parents, but most of all, he stole my right to be seen as human. To Jake, I existed only to serve his needs, support his dreams, sacrifice my future for his glory. When I tried to claim personhood by leaving, he tried to kill me. Mom sobbed quietly. Dad stared at his hands. "I'm asking the court to give Jake what he never gave me: boundaries. Prison walls to contain the violence he couldn't control. Time to maybe learn empathy he never developed. Protection for other women from someone who sees us as property to control. Other victims followed. Melissa Chen spoke about years of therapy to overcome Jake's abuse. Charlotte Webb described the isolation he'd imposed the friends she'd lost to his jealousy. 3 more women detailed patterns of escalating violence, always ending with institutional pressure to stay silent. Connor took the stand not as a victim, but as a bystander seeking redemption. I failed Leann Patterson by staying silent, failed every woman Jake hurt while we protected him. Your Honor, Jake's not sick. He's not misunderstood. He's a predator who used his status as camouflage. Please don't let him hide anymore. The defense's turn came with Jake's high school principal testifying about his potential, his coach lamenting the loss to athletics, and finally, my father taking the stand. Dad looked aged by decades, his business suit hanging on a frame that had shrunk with stress. His statement was brief but revealing. I'm asking for leniency for my son, he said mechanically. Jake made mistakes, but he's young. Prison won't help him. He needs treatment, not punishment. Judge Morrison interrupted. Mr. Patterson, do you acknowledge what your son did to your daughter? Dad's composure cracked. Jake was under pressure. The scholarships, the expectations. Leann didn't understand what he was carrying. So you believe the assault was justified? No, Dad floundered, looking at Mom desperately. We invested everything in Jake. Everything. If he goes to prison, what was it all for? Perhaps you should ask what your daughter's safety was worth, the judge replied coldly. Jake himself declined to speak on advice of counsel preparing his appeals, but his silence spoke volumes to those who'd heard years of his boasts and threats. Judge Morrison took a recess before pronouncing sentence. When she returned, her expression was granite. Mr. Patterson, you were gifted with athletic talent that opened doors most people never see. You had parents who sacrificed to support your dreams, a sister who worked to contribute to the household, while you pursued glory, a community that celebrated your achievements. You had every advantage. She paused, eyes boring into Jake. You chose to turn those gifts into weapons. You terrorized your sister for the crime of existing independently. You assaulted multiple women who dared reject your control. You corrupted entire institutions into enabling your violence. You showed no remorse, only rage at facing consequences. On the charge of assault causing serious bodily injury, I sentence you to 8 years in state prison. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Mom cried out. Jake's head snapped up in shock. On the charge of criminal threats, 5 years. False imprisonment, 3 years. The sentences will run concurrently for a total of 8 years. You'll serve a minimum of 5 years before parole eligibility. But Judge Morrison wasn't finished. Additionally, upon release, you'll have a lifetime restraining order protecting Leann Patterson and all named victims. You'll register as a violent offender. You'll complete mandatory anger management and domestic violence programs. Your Honor, Brennan stood. This is excessive for a first-time offender. Oh, first-time convicted, Judge Morrison corrected. The evidence shows years of violence. Mr. Patterson is fortunate the statute of limitations prevents additional charges. I'm also ordering restitution for medical expenses, therapy costs, and lost wages totaling $97,000. The number staggered my parents. Their retirement, already depleted by legal fees, would never recover. The golden boy had cost them everything. As bailiffs prepared to lead Jake away, he finally spoke. Not to the judge or his lawyer, but to me. I hope you're happy, he snarled. You destroyed everything. No, I replied clearly. You destroyed everything. I just stopped letting you destroy me. They led him out as Mom wailed and Dad sat frozen. The courthouse erupted with reactions. Survivors hugging reporters, scrambling for quotes, Jake's few remaining supporters hurrying away in defeat. Outside on the courthouse steps, Sharp addressed the media briefly. Today's sentence sends a clear message. Athletic talent doesn't excuse violence. Community status doesn't place anyone above the law. Jake Patterson learned that lesson too late. Hopefully, others will learn it in time. I gave no interviews, slipping away with Patricia and my support team to a quiet restaurant for what felt like the first peaceful meal in years. The weight that had crushed me for so long was lifting. Jake was gone not just from my life, but from any position to hurt others. That evening, unexpected visitors arrived at the safe house. My parents stood at the gate looking lost and broken. Linda offered to send them away, but something made me agree to see them. We met in the garden, the space between us feeling like an ocean. Mom spoke first, her voice barely a whisper. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know. I see it now. What we did, what we allowed, what we chose. Tears coursed down her cheeks. We turned Jake into a monster by never saying no, and we sacrificed you to feed that monster. Dad cleared his throat roughly. The prosecutor offered us a plea deal, community service and probation if we allocate against Jake at his appeal, admit to the cover-ups. We're taking it. Why tell me? I asked, genuinely curious. Because you deserve to know we're finally choosing truth, Mom said. Too late, but we're choosing truth. They left without asking for anything. Not forgiveness, not contact, not reconciliation. Just left their truth in the garden and walked away. I watched them go, these strangers who'd raised me, and felt only hollow sadness for the family we might have been. The next morning brought news that would reshape Riverside further. The State Athletic Association announced a comprehensive investigation into the culture of athlete protection. The high school faced sanctions. The entire coaching staff was under review. New policies mandated reporting of violence regardless of the perpetrator's status. Coach Stevens, who'd resigned in disgrace, was charged with failure to report child abuse. Several teachers faced similar charges. The Booster Club dissolved after major donors withdrew support. The infrastructure that had protected Jake and others like him crumbled piece by piece. I gave one interview to Michelle Santos, who'd broken the story. In it, I said something that resonated beyond Riverside. Jake wasn't born a monster. He was created by every person who looked away, every institution that protected him, every excuse that was made. If we want to prevent more Jake Pattersons, we need to stop building them. Tell boys no. Hold athletes accountable. Believe victims the first time, not after the body count rises. The interview went viral, sparking national conversations about sports culture and domestic violence. I received thousands of messages from survivors sharing their stories, thanking me for speaking out, finding strength in solidarity. But the most meaningful message came from an unexpected source. Jake's ex-teammate Marcus sent a letter. My little brother started playing football this year. After everything that happened, I sat him down and talked about what real strength means. Protecting people, not hurting them. Taking responsibility, not making excuses. Being a good man, not just a good player. Thank you for forcing us to have these conversations. Thank you for saving my brother from becoming like Jake. As Christmas approached, I prepared to leave the safe house. Patricia had helped me find an apartment near the nursing program I'd start in January. Rosa had offered me shifts at a diner near campus. Life was beginning again, this time on my terms. The day I left Riverside, I drove past the high school. The trophy case that had showcased Jake's achievements was gone, replaced with a display about student mental health resources. The football field where he'd reigned as Golden Boy looked smaller than I remembered, just grass and goalposts, no kingdom for princes. My last stop was the cemetery where my maternal grandmother was buried. I'd missed her funeral while in hiding, but I needed to say goodbye. At her grave, I found fresh flowers and a note. Thank you for saving my granddaughter. I always knew she was the special one. Love, Grandma Ellen. I cried then for the grandmother who'd seen truth when everyone else chose blindness, for the girl who'd survived despite everything, for the woman I was becoming in the ruins of what I'd escaped. Jake was serving his first month in state prison. No longer golden, no longer special, just another number in orange. My parents were facing their own legal consequences while rebuilding lives without their manufactured dream. Riverside was painfully examining its soul-making changes that should have come years earlier. And me, I was free. Not just from Jake's violence, but from the narrative that had trapped me as the supporting character in his story. I was writing my own story, now one where the victim became the victor, where truth defeated lies, where a girl who'd been told she didn't matter proved that she did. Justice had been served, but more than that, transformation had begun. For me, for my community, even for those who'd enabled the violence. Jake's reign was over, and in its place, something better could finally grow. The golden boy had fallen, but from his ashes, truth had risen, and truth, I'd learned, was the most powerful force of all. January arrived with fresh snow and new beginnings. My apartment near Mercy General was small, but mine, every corner, a declaration of independence. Patricia helped me move in, bringing housewarming gifts that included a security system she insisted on installing herself. "I know he's locked up," she said, drilling mounting brackets, "but you deserve to feel completely safe." The nursing program began with an intensive orientation. As I sat in the lecture hall surrounded by other hopeful students, I felt like an imposter. Everyone else seemed so young, unburdened by the weight I carried. Then a woman my age sat beside me, offering a warm smile. "Career changer too," she asked. "I'm Sarah, former retail manager who finally decided to chase my dreams." "Leann," I replied. "Former survivor, I guess, also chasing dreams." Sarah's expression shifted to recognition. "You're the one from the news, the Patterson case." Before I could retreat, she added, "My sister went through something similar. You gave her courage to leave. Thank you." It was the first of many such encounters. My story had rippled outward, touching lives I'd never know. But here in these halls, dedicated to healing, I could be more than Jake Patterson's victim. I could become a healer myself. The coursework was demanding, but felt like purpose after years of mere survival. Anatomy and physiology challenged my mind in ways serving pancakes never had. My clinical instructors noticed my careful attention to patient histories, my ability to spot signs of abuse others missed. "You have a gift," Professor Williams told me after I gently coaxed an elderly woman to admit her injuries weren't from falling. "Survivors often become the best advocates." Back in Riverside, the reckoning continued. Mom wrote me letters I didn't open at first, stacking them in a drawer like evidence of change I wasn't ready to believe. Dad's business had folded after major clients distanced themselves. They'd sold the house, moved to a small apartment on the outskirts of town. Connor kept me updated through regular texts. He'd started a program at Riverside High called Athletes for Accountability, teaching younger players about consent, healthy relationships, and the courage to speak up. 3 other schools had requested he help them start similar programs. "Jake hates it," Connor wrote. "Marcus visited him last week, says Jake rants about you poisoning everyone against him. Still takes no responsibility. The prison counselor says it'll take years to break through that narcissism, if ever." Dr. Martinez invited me to coffee during my first clinical rotation. She'd been promoted to head of emergency medicine and implemented new protocols for identifying abuse victims. "You changed this hospital," she told me. "Your case forced us to confront our failures. Now we have mandatory training, better reporting systems, and partnerships with advocacy groups. Lives will be saved because you spoke up." The legal consequences continued rippling outward. Coach Stevens was convicted of failure to report, receiving 2 years probation and lifetime ban from coaching. 3 teachers lost their licenses. The principal took early retirement rather than face charges. Most significantly, the state legislature passed Leann's law, requiring athletic departments to report all violence allegations regardless of the accused's status. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress built on my pain. Spring semester brought unexpected joy. I excelled in my classes, finding strength in knowledge. Study groups formed around my kitchen table where classmates became friends who knew my story but saw my future. Sarah became particularly close our weekly coffee dates, a sanctuary of normalcy. You know what I admire about you, she said one evening. You don't let it define you. The trauma is part of your story, but it's not your whole story. She was right. I was building new chapters, volunteering at the domestic violence shelter on weekends, tutoring struggling students, dating tentatively, learning to trust again with a fellow nursing student named David who moved slowly and respected every boundary. That summer, I finally opened Mom's letters. They charted a journey from denial through grief to something approaching accountability. She'd started therapy, confronting her role in enabling Jake. Her latest letter was different from the rest. I dream about that morning in the kitchen, see myself choosing him over you, wake up sick with shame. I know you can't forgive me. I can't forgive myself, but I want you to know I testify at his parole hearings. Not for him, against him. He's not ready for freedom, may never be. I won't let him hurt anyone else. It's the only mothering I can offer you now, keeping the monster we created locked away. I cried reading it, grieving the mother-daughter relationship that we'd never have while acknowledging the protection she now offered. It wasn't enough, could never be enough, but it was something. August marked 1 year since the morning Jake broke my ribs and Dr. Martinez broke my silence. Patricia threw a Freedom Day party in her Cincinnati garden. My classmates came along with Rosa Connor and several survivors I'd met through advocacy work. Charlotte Webb arrived with news. She'd started law school inspired to become a prosecutor specializing in domestic violence cases. You showed me that staying silent protects no one, she said. I want to be the voice for women who aren't ready to use their own. Melissa Chen video called from California, where she worked as a crisis counselor. The other survivors Jake had hurt were building their own new lives. One became a self-defense instructor, another started a support group, all of us turning trauma into purpose. As golden hour painted Patricia's garden, I stood before the gathered friends, my chosen family, to make an announcement. I've been accepted to Mercy General's specialized program in forensic nursing. It's intensive training to help assault victims collect evidence, testify in court. Everything I survived has prepared me for this. The celebration that followed felt like a benediction. Here were people who'd stood by me, believed me, fought for me. Jake had tried to isolate me, but instead, his violence had connected me to a community of warriors. That fall, my second year of nursing school began with deeper purpose. The forensic program was challenging, learning to document injuries, preserve evidence, provide trauma-informed care while maintaining legal standards. My instructors included Detective Walsh, who'd transitioned to teaching after the Patterson case. You understand victims in ways textbooks can't teach, she told me after a particularly intense training session. That's invaluable, but remember to protect your own healing too. She was right about the emotional toll. Some days studying assault patterns felt like reliving my own trauma. But my cohort, 5 other students with their own reasons for choosing this path, became a support network. We processed together, strengthened together, prepared together to face darkness with healing light. November brought Jake's first parole hearing. He'd served less than 2 years of his 8-year sentence, but his lawyer argued for early release. I submitted a written statement, but didn't attend. My presence in the life I'd built was testimony enough. The parole board denied him unanimously. Reports indicated he'd failed multiple anger management courses, started 3 fights, and showed 0 remorse. Mom kept her promise, testifying about his lack of accountability. The board scheduled his next hearing for 3 years hence. He blamed you for everything, Connor reported after attending. Claimed the prison violence proved he needed protection from dangerous criminals. The board reminded him that he was the dangerous criminal. As my program continued, opportunities emerged. The district attorney's office offered me an internship. Local hospitals requested training based on protocols I'd helped develop. My trauma had become expertise, my survival a roadmap for others. David and I grew closer, our relationship built on mutual respect and careful trust. He understood my triggers, celebrated my victories, supported my advocacy without trying to save me. When I graduated with my BSN in forensic certification, he was there with Patricia, Rosa, and my nursing school family. Dr. Martinez offered me a position in Mercy General's emergency department with a focus on forensic cases. We need someone who understands both the medical and human aspects of trauma. You're uniquely qualified. That night, I stood in my apartment looking at my diploma certificates and the life I'd built from ruins. On my refrigerator, a photo from Patricia's garden party showed me surrounded by chosen family, smiling genuinely. Next to it, a letter from a survivor I'd helped through the hospital, thanking me for seeing her pain when others saw only injuries. Jake remained in prison, fighting appeals that went nowhere, growing bitter in his cage. My parents lived quietly with their choices forever marked by their failure. Riverside had changed imperfectly, but genuinely confronting ugly truths about power and protection. And me, I'd transformed from victim to survivor, to advocate to healer. The girl who'd been told she didn't matter now helped others matter. The woman who'd been silenced now taught others to speak. The person Jake had tried to break had become unbreakable. My phone buzzed with a text from Connor. 3 more schools want to start athletes for accountability. You started a movement, Leann. Hope you're proud. I was. Proud of speaking truth when lies were easier. Proud of choosing healing over hatred. Proud of building something beautiful where violence had ruled. Proud of becoming exactly who Jake had tried to prevent, a strong, independent woman who helped others find their own strength. Tomorrow, I'd start my first shift as a forensic nurse. I'd meet survivors in their darkest moments and offer what Dr. Martinez had given me: belief support and the promise that this wasn't the end of their story. Just like it hadn't been the end of mine. The golden boy had fallen, but in his place, something far more valuable had risen: truth, justice, and the unbreakable spirit of those who refuse to be silenced. And that was worth more than all the trophies and scholarships in the world. 2 years had passed since I walked into Mercy General as a forensic nurse. The December morning was crisp and bright as I prepared for what would be a momentous day, not just for me, but for everyone whose life had been touched by the ripples of speaking truth to power. The hospital conference room had been transformed for the occasion. The Riverside Gazette was there, along with state media, to cover the announcement of the Patterson Foundation, a comprehensive support system for domestic violence survivors that had grown from the ashes of my family's destruction. I stood at the podium in my navy suit, looking out at faces that told the story of transformation. Rosa beamed from the front row, now president of the local business alliance supporting survivor employment. Connor sat with his wife and baby daughter named Hope after the program he'd built. Charlotte Webb was there in her prosecutor's suit, having just won her first domestic violence case. Patricia dabbed at tears, forever my anchor. 4 years ago, I lay in this hospital with broken ribs and a broken spirit. I thought speaking up would end my story. Instead, it began a new chapter for all of us. The Patterson Foundation, funded by an unexpected source, would provide emergency housing, legal aid, medical care, and educational scholarships for survivors. The unexpected source, Grandma Ellen, who'd passed 6 months prior, leaving her entire estate, nearly $2 million, to establish the foundation in my name. She wrote that she'd stayed silent too long. I continued reading from Grandma's letter, that watching our family enable violence while punishing truth was her greatest regret. This foundation is her apology and her legacy, ensuring no one else stays trapped in silence. The foundation would operate from the old Patterson family home. My parents broken by legal fees and social exile had sold it in foreclosure. The foundation bought it, transforming the house where I'd lived in fear into a place of healing and hope. Jake's trophy room would become a counseling center. My small bedroom would house a 24-hour crisis hotline. Detective Walsh, now retired, would run the legal advocacy program. Dr. Martinez would oversee medical services. Maria, our former housekeeper, would manage the house hired at triple her old salary with full benefits and the respect she'd always deserved. "The boy who terrorized me is serving year 4 of his sentence," I said, addressing the elephant in the room. "He's been denied parole twice more, failing to show remorse or growth. But this isn't about Jake anymore. It's about the women he'll never hurt because we spoke up. The children who'll grow up in homes where violence isn't tolerated because we changed the culture. The survivors who'll find help because we built something from our pain." The audience erupted in applause. Survivors I'd helped through the hospital, athletes from Connor's program, and community members who'd chosen change over comfortable complicity filled the room with hope that had once seemed impossible. After the announcement, we toured the transformed Patterson house. The kitchen where Jake had broken my ribs now held a communal dining space where survivors could share meals and strength. The stairs he'd pushed me down displayed photos of women who'd rebuilt their lives. Every room told a story of redemption over ruin. Mom attended, slipping in quietly at the back. She'd aged significantly, her carefully styled hair, now gray designer clothes replaced by simple dress. When our eyes met, she nodded once acknowledgement without expectation. She'd kept her promise, testifying against Jake at every hearing, ensuring he stayed contained. It wasn't motherhood, but it was protection. Dad didn't come. He'd moved to another state, unable to face the community's judgment or his own failures. Connor told me he worked construction. Now his business empire collapsed, along with his delusions about Jake. Sometimes the price of enabling violence is losing everything you thought mattered. That evening, the foundation hosted its first fundraising gala. The Riverside Country Club, which had once revoked our membership after Jake's arrest, donated their ballroom. Local businesses competed to sponsor tables. The same boosters who'd protected Jake now wrote checks to protect his victims. As I delivered the keynote address, I spotted unexpected faces in the crowd. Jake's former teammates, who'd initially defended him, sat at a table with Connor, part of his expanding program. The judge who'd sentenced Jake attended with her daughter. Even Coach Stevens was there, invited by Connor to share his story of complicity and redemption with young coaches. "We gather tonight not to celebrate victory, but to commit to vigilance," I said. Jake Patterson was created by systems that valued performance over personhood. Those systems still exist, but tonight we commit to dismantling them brick by brick, myth by myth, until every person can live free from violence. The gala raised $300,000 in one night. Pledges came from unexpected sources, former Jake supporters who'd finally seen the light, businesses wanting to separate themselves from the old culture, and survivors who'd found success and wanted to pay it forward. David found me on the balcony during the celebration, wrapping his suit jacket around my shoulders against the cold. We'd married quietly 6 months earlier, a small ceremony with chosen family. He'd taken my name, not Patterson, but my middle name Morrison, both of us choosing to build something new. "Your grandmother would be proud," he said, watching the celebration through the windows. "You've turned every bit of pain into purpose." "Not just me," I corrected. "All of us. Everyone who spoke up, stood up, showed up. We did this together." A commotion inside drew our attention. Charlotte was announcing her latest victory. The state had agreed to fund mandatory domestic violence education in all schools starting in middle school. Connor's program would help develop the curriculum. My story, once silenced, would help teach thousands of young people about healthy relationships and speaking up. As the evening wound down, Connor pulled me aside. "I have something for you," he said, handing me an envelope. "Jake wrote this. His counselor thought you should decide whether to read it." I held the envelope, feeling its weight. Part of me wanted to burn it unread, but curiosity won. I opened it carefully, recognizing Jake's handwriting still trying to seem important with those dramatic capitals. I hate you. Every day in here, I hate you more. You destroyed everything I was meant to be. But the counselor makes me write these letters, says I need to understand why. I was special. Everyone said so. You were just the supporting character. That's all you were supposed to be. Why couldn't you just play your role? I don't understand why you had to ruin everything. I was going to the NFL. I was gonna be somebody. Now I'm just prisoner. 38847. I hope you're happy with what you've done. You've destroyed the only person in our family who mattered. I folded the letter calmly, feeling nothing. No anger, no sadness, just emptiness, where Jake's words once would have cut deep. He still didn't understand. Still saw himself as the victim, me as the antagonist in his story. The golden boy had learned nothing. Want me to burn it, Connor offered. No guy, I decided. Frame it. Put it in the foundation office. Let it remind us what we're fighting against, the entitlement that creates abusers, the blindness that can't see others as human. Jake's still building his prison with every word. As guests departed, each stopping to pledge support or share gratitude, I stood in the foyer of my childhood home. The ghosts were gone, exorcised by purpose. Where fear had ruled, hope now lived. Where violence had reigned, healing grew. Marcus approached as one of the last to leave. My little brother made varsity this year, he said. First thing he did was volunteer for the accountability program. Said he wanted to be the kind of athlete his sister could be proud of. You changed what strength means to these kids, Leann. After everyone left, I walked through the house one last time. In the kitchen, Maria was planning tomorrow's survivor breakfast. In the office, Charlotte reviewed case files for women we'd help find justice. In the counseling room, Dr. Martinez set up medical supplies for free clinics. This house had been Jake's kingdom, where he'd ruled through fear. Now it belonged to survivors, a place where broken people could become whole, where silenced voices could roar, where the Golden Boy's victims became victors. My phone buzzed with a notification. Another survivor had reached out through our hotline, ready to tell her story. Seek help, break free. Tomorrow, I'd meet her at the hospital, offer the same belief Dr. Martinez had given me. The cycle of healing would continue. Standing on the porch where I'd once waited in terror for Jake to come home, I looked up at the stars. Grandma Ellen was up there somewhere, finally at peace, knowing her money would save lives instead of enabling destruction. Mom was across town living with her choices, but making amends through action. Dad was somewhere distant, running from truth that followed anyway. And Jake sat in a cell writing letters full of hatred to a sister who'd outgrown his reach. The Golden Boy had become nothing more than a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when talent excuses terrorism, when families choose reputation over reality, when communities enable instead of protect. But from his ashes had risen something beautiful, a network of survivors, advocates, and allies committed to breaking cycles of violence. Programs teaching young athletes accountability, laws protecting victims, a foundation offering hope. Lives rebuilt, voices raised, truth triumphant. I'd once believed Jake when he said I didn't matter, that I existed only to support his glory. Now I knew better. I mattered. My pain mattered. My truth mattered. And because I'd finally believed, that finally spoken, it finally demanded justice, countless others would matter too. The Golden Boy had fallen, but in falling he'd freed us all to rise. As I drove home to David and the life we'd built, I passed Riverside High. A new sign stood where Jake's championship banner once hung, home of the athletes for accountability program building, champions on and off the field. I smiled, remembering the girl who'd once driven past those fields in terror. She'd found her voice, used it to shatter silence, and discovered that speaking truth didn't end her story. It let her finally begin writing her own. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new survivors, new battles against systems that create Jake Pattersons. But tonight, surrounded by evidence of transformation, supported by armies of truth tellers, funded by redemption from unexpected sources, I knew we were ready. The golden boy was gone. In his place stood something far more powerful, hope healing, and the unbreakable spirit of survivors who refused to be silenced. And that legacy would outlast any trophy, any scholarship, any glory he'd thought he deserved. Justice had been served, lives had been rebuilt, and the girl who'd once been told she was nothing had become everything Jake feared, free, strong, and unstoppable. The story that began with broken ribs and broken silence ended with broken cycles and boundless possibility. And this time, the only person writing the ending was me. Thank you for joining me on this journey from pain to purpose. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please know that you matter. Your story matters, and help is available. Like Leann, you deserve to be free, safe, and supported. Have you ever had to find courage to speak up when systems protected someone harmful? What gave you strength? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched you, please consider liking and subscribing to hear more stories of triumph over adversity. Share this with someone who might need to hear that their voice matters sometimes. One story can change everything. Remember, you are not alone, you are believed, and you are stronger than you know.